This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
That you stand for.
Shin champion!
JT's connecting! Oh my God! You take them to the Rolex! Wearing diamond ring, wearing kiss stealing, woo, wheeling dealing, limousine right, jet flying, son of a gun!
Very, 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 Mickey, 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 fishy, fishy!
All right, welcome once again to the Voice Wrestling Podcast. I'm Rich Grace alongside, as always, Mr. Joe Lenz. And Joe, I believe this will be one of the first few times. I mean, there's been one or two times, but this might be maybe possibly our last time leading off with TNA Impact Wrestling.
Well,
the story of the day. I mean, we can't. You have to, right?
I think we've been talking more about TNA on this show in the last month or so than we've talked about New Japan.
It's true, and somebody I forgot who it was on Twitter, but somebody mentioned, and people get really mad when I say I forgot who this was. Like, it was me, asshole. Like, how did you not remember? But somebody mentioned that. Imagine how boring these past few months would have been without TNA, and they're absolutely right, because it's just been like every day, every week that we come on here, it's just a new thing, some new weird. Like, there's just always something surrounding. I mean, and nothing's about like the product itself. We're not going to break down like a feud or matches. It's just this bizarre world that we've been living in lately with TNA, but they're absolutely right that it would have been just a bore these past 2 months, because especially this New Japan lull. So I appreciate it for our purposes. Thank you, TNA, for always giving us a lot of stories to talk about on a weekly basis. So
if there is something to talk about in a promotion, we will talk about it. This is the one show in the world, and I truly believe this. This is the one podcast in the world where we will talk about any promotion at any given time.
If they're newsworthy, yes.
If there's something in the news, or if there's some juice, or if there's a story surrounding it. And I really believe that there's no other podcast around that does as good a job of that as we do. But it is also why we go 6 fucking hours half the time.
Right.
So there's a give and take there.
Right, because oh my God, something happened in Wrestle 1. We must talk about it. I mean, we really don't, but
well, but that's the thing. That's what.
But that's our niche.
Us.
That's our niche. That's our exactly.
Because who else is going to talk about what's going on in Wrestle 1?
Right, you better be the best at whatever you do, and that's what we're the best at, is talking about literally everything.
And you know, it hopefully we're compelling when we talk about these odd topics, and if we are, then that's all that matters. But TNA has been in the news pretty much nonstop, especially over the last, 6 to 8 weeks. And here we go, we find ourselves leading off with TNA again. I mean, that's just the way it goes, New Japan's in between tours, and WWE has, 4 or 5 weeks before their next pay-per-view?
Yeah, there's a few things. We're going to talk about both at some point. We have a Road to Dominion show, and we have the a WWE Japan show that we're going to talk about. But yeah, I mean, it hasn't been a lead story, either of those companies. There's just been nothing.
And, I mean, we got a ton to talk about here. We got Ring of Honor stuff to talk about. We have Buddy Landel to talk about. There's some DDT stuff to talk about. Best in the World needs to be reviewed. And we've got a show that potentially could be one of these 6-hour shows. And you've got Big Bully Busick out in the backyard doing the stump puller out there, delaying things.
Yeah.
In a reference that just went completely over your head, judging by the way
I know what it
you
is. No, I got it. It's a little deep. I had to think about it for a sec. because I just kept thinking Biff Busick when you said it. I was like, what does it have anything to do with Biff Busick? And then I figured out a little bit the Big Bully, but
Big Bully
I
Busick,
got
the
it, yeah.
stump puller.
Oh yeah, no, I got it now. At first, I just couldn't get Biff Busick out of my head. You said it, and then I was thinking, and I was like, I don't really get the joke at all. But I got
maybe
it.
the least impressive looking finisher that legitimately hurts in the history of wrestling.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Because have you ever had that conversation with people? I have like wrestling fan friends, and we'll have that conversation about like finishing moves and like ones that look like they hurt and then don't hurt or whatever. That one, I think you are correct. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see what people say of the one that does actually hurt but looks like absolute garbage and looks like it doesn't hurt.
I mean, it just looks completely stupid. But the thing is, it's that combination of looking bad, but it legitimately is painful. You don't want a man the size of Big Bully Busick putting you in a legitimate stump puller. You would be tapping out, mercilessly if he had you in a stump puller. As far as now, people have no idea what we're talking about, by the way. But
Doink the Clown did it too, in case people.
Yeah, yes. Well, yeah, but no one knows why I'm making this Big Bully Busick stump puller reference. Rich, you literally had people outside of your window pulling a stump.
Yes, they were literally pulling a. Yes, they were shaving a tree. They just knocked down this gigantic tree in like the yard next to us or whatever. Like I'm telling you, this is a gigantic oak tree, like huge old school oak tree that they just took down. Like they've been, Michelle said that they've been doing it all day. Like it's been basically all day. And then for whatever reason, they decided they stopped from like 5 till like 7:30, and then at 7:30 decided, hey, you know what, we're gonna start again, tearing this tree down. So then they were tearing it apart, chainsawing it, and then the stump was there, so they decided to take another tool to pull the stump out. So yeah, that was very fun. But they're finally quiet now. So for now, I don't know. They might come back at 9 p.m. to start working on it again, but we're done for now, I believe. So it's a little bit delayed, but that's fine. And now we're delaying it even further by having this incredibly long intro that is going nowhere.
As far as stupid looking finishers, I don't think many things can top like crushing your head with his two hands.
Yeah,
on the sides of the person's head. That looks pretty stupid. One finisher that looked impressive, but was pretty dumb, and I don't understand why people, the Von Erich Iron Claw. Like,
yeah,
in reality, it's pretty silly. I mean, it'd be pretty easy to escape, but you have to buy into the fact that these men have, a vice-like grip with their fingertips to be able to hold on to a sweaty forehead. With the fingertips of their but it looked cool. But I mean, it was pretty hard to buy from the perspective of, well, why can't Iceman Parsons just slip away from this thing? I mean, but the stump puller, I mean, it just looks stupid. I mean, the announcers really had to put that thing over as something. You're essentially just sitting on the man's neck and, pulling his legs upward. I mean, it just looks ridiculous. But I'm sure it hurts like hell.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to think. It's hard to remember, kind of on the spot, think of just like worst looking fit. It might just be guys that like mine might be just guys that do some, like guys that shouldn't do submissions that do them. For a while there when Taker was trying to get the Hell's Gate over or whatever. Remember that and it just looked awful, and like he did it wrong all the time. And it took a few years, and eventually he got it to be like that was the finishing move to a WrestleMania. I think he beat Edge with it or something like that. But for so long, it just looked like utter garbage. Because especially from that guy of like the Undertaker doing it, you're just like, what the hell is he doing? Like, why is he doing that? Like, and it didn't look good. And you don't wrench the arm in really, or he didn't at least. So that's one. Yeah, I'm trying to think on the top of my head. I'm sure there's a lot.
That's an example.
Oh, yeah.
The Miz with his figure 4. I mean, there's a guy,
Yeah, The Rock with the sharpshooter, the horrendous looking.
Yeah, the awful sharpshooter. Yeah.
Sharpshooter's another one that. Have you ever put somebody in sharpshooter or been put in one? That fucker hurts a lot.
I don't think any wrestling fan worth his salt who hasn't fucked around and wrestled with their brothers when they were kids or their friends in the backyard or whatever hasn't been put in a sharpshooter at some point.
Yeah, that's like day number 1. Like, let's try this thing.
It's easy to execute. It was all the rage when we were all younger because of, Bret Hart and Sting. It looked cool. It's something you can do without breaking someone's neck. That was a pretty popular move, when you're a kid and you're wrestling your buddies. I think that's like that's a frequent finishing maneuver, I think, the sharpshooter. So I think we've all been in that one.
Yeah, and the figure four is one that hurts like hell. That one hurts a lot. Like I never really realized how much. And that might just be like us not putting it on properly, which is very possible. Man, that one always hurt me.
I think it's, when you're a kid and you're actually applying pressure.
Yeah, that's true. I think I'm guessing we didn't know how to do it
Yeah.
properly. Yes.
But yeah, aren't we supposed to be talking about TNA?
We are supposed to be talking about TNA. You know who had a terrible finisher? Jeff Jarrett. That fucking stroke. Remember that thing? That was lame.
Yeah, not a big fan of the stroke.
The stroke and like the zigzag, like the current one, the Ziggler's one, because it's just it's just a back bump. It's just really like, I guess he grabs your neck and launches you back. The stroke was particularly awful though.
It's like, Russian leg sweep, that guy.
Right. It's like, well, that's not different than anything that I've been doing the entire time we've been wrestling, but that's fine. Yeah, no, the stroke is
finishers that appear to do as much damage to the person giving it as the person taking it. Those always.
Well, no, there's no worse finisher in the sport of wrestling than Big Show's punch.
Well,
far and away the worst.
I've gone on that rant no less than a half.
Yeah, we don't have to do it again. Dear God, let's not talk Big Show.
Dig into the archives to find out why we hate that as a finish. I mean, just do it right at the bell, which he did do at Survivor Series.
Right.
Which pleased me greatly. But yeah, it's a completely ridiculous finisher.
Jeff Jarrett.
The other modern finisher I hate, though, I want to get one more in, and people always get mad at me at this one, is the Cesaro neutralizer. Is a ridiculous finisher too. He picks you up like he's going to give you the gotch pile driver, but then he gently lays you down on your knees.
Yeah, it'd be better. Yeah, he's got it set up to be like a really impactful move, and then he just kind of like lays down, and you just kind of land on your face. Yeah,
and then he gently puts you down, and you land knees first. Why does that incapacitate the opponent? And furthermore, when they were doing that gimmick where he was giving the neutralizer to all of these large men, and they were putting him over, with the strongman gimmick. Why was that so difficult? It's not like he was lifting him over his head.
Yeah, he also didn't have to lift them. Yeah,
I mean, it didn't look impressive at all. Okay, so it's the great Khali is a big man. I get it, but then he's just gently laying Khali down on his knees.
Right. Whereas like a Ryback doing the shell shock, I mean, that looks impressive every time he does it.
That looks like it'll
because
knock
it is impressive because
he's
he's literally picking up Great Khali, and yeah, right.
Yeah, the neutralizer doesn't look like it would hurt at all. I don't know, but Jeff Jarrett, Rich, can you please
the stroke sucks.
The stroke sucks, but I will tell you what didn't suck. And that was the Jeff and Karen Jarrett promo on Impact.
Yes.
On Wednesday night, which I thought was a tremendous promo.
I liked everything about the whole segment in general. And it's really something, if you haven't seen it, if you just read the news or whatever, I would, and we don't recommend this often, go out of your way and watch that part of Impact because it comes at kind of a random time. As we found out, like nobody knew this. Like even the guys in the back had no idea. The script was written, it was written, and then this because they come out and Josh Matthews is legitimately like, what? Like you can tell the Pope too. And then the Pope's like, oh my God, and it just sort of broke, and it's something that like. The fake sort of shoot style stuff I don't really like. The Russo-esque, like everyone's acting like it's a shoot when it's really not. But sometimes I like the idea where sometimes these guys just really kind of don't know. And it felt like the promo was that way too. Like it wasn't a rehearsed promo. It wasn't. I mean, Karen was out there, literally spilling her soul. Jeff Jarrett saying stuff, and they're sort of. It wasn't worked. It wasn't a work shoot. I mean, in some ways it was, but it felt very real, and it felt like, oh wow, it woke you up when you're watching. Like you had to pay attention to every single word that was being said because it wasn't just a worthless wrestling promo. There was a lot of substance to it.
It's like we talk about all the time here that you're a big fan of, and I'm a big fan of. And it's something we're going to talk about later. At least I want to talk about later when we talk about Buddy Landel, and that's wrestling promos are always so much better when they're just rooted in reality. And you just, it's easier to buy into these things when the people are just being real or what they're saying is rooted in reality. And that's exactly what we saw here, especially with Karen Jarrett. Look, I don't know if they were, if these, they were out there working us or whatever, but it doesn't matter because it came off so real and genuine. And it worked. And I'll tell you, 7 days ago when we recorded last week's show, we were ripping TNA to shreds and ripping, in particular, Slammiversary to shreds because they had announced nothing for the show. It had less than zero juice. And I came away from that promo genuinely interested in seeing Jeff Jarrett wrestle in that match. Jeff Jarrett.
Yes, in 2015. The year is 2015.
Based on the promo that he and his wife gave. I'm genuinely curious to see him wrestle that match, and I'm genuinely curious to see. I want to see this man win that King of the Mountain match now. And there's look, I'm not sitting here. I'm not going to tell you that I'm all amped up about Slammiversary now, like it's Wrestle Kingdom or the final G1 night or whatever. Insert your favorite wrestling show here. But now there's some interest there. I'm genuinely interested in the show now. And isn't that the point of these promos? You know, didn't we just hear a couple weeks back Paul Heyman on the Stone Cold podcast on the network, and he talked about how he had to burn 4 minutes at the end of a Clash of Champions or something, and he went out there and he did all these impersonations of wrestlers, and he was funny and he thought that he killed it. And then Dusty Rhodes said to him, you know, Paul, you know, that was great what you did out there, but where was the money? You didn't sell anybody on the pay-per-view we have coming up.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, that was the exact story. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and that's what this reminded me of. It's like, you know, nobody was interested in Slammiversary before that promo, and they went out there, and for whatever level that means for TNA right now, look, it's still not going to do any.
It's negligible. Yeah, exactly.
Those were, you know, if this were a different promotion or a different time and place, those were money promos. They weren't the greatest promos of all time, but those were money promos because they got, to me, I think those promos got people interested in Slammiversary at a level they weren't interested before.
Well, and it's simple to talk about too, because you said that now you're a little juiced and you're a little amped for it, and the reason you are is because he is, and you can feel that, and you can sense that Jeff. It means a lot to Jeff Jarrett that you know he's holding back tears, saying, you know what, hey, I wanted one more, you know, I wanted a chance, I wanted this, you know, I wanted to feel redeemed, I wanted to, you know, go out on my terms or whatever, and we've talked about that numerous times, is that you can cut the best pro wrestling promo in the world, but if I don't feel that you care, why would I care?
Right.
And that's we got that from Jarrett. And Jarrett's a guy that I don't care. I mean, I'm not a Jeff Jarrett fan whatsoever. When have we ever talked about Jeff Jarrett on this podcast? None of us, you know, can't speak for you, but I could care less about Jeff Jarrett. But at the end of that, I was like, you know what, damn it. I hope that guy gets his good moment. Like, the guy has worked a lot of years. This is his company. That'd be pretty cool for him to kind of go out on top. Like, this is without knowing exactly what's going on and, you know, whatever's going on backstage and something going on with Global Force. I have no idea, but presumably from the way he sold that is, I want one last chance to go out on my terms. And I'm like, cool, I'm into that. And because he seemed like he cared about it. And that's all you ask for. That's all you really want out of a pro wrestling promo is make me care about you in the ring. Make me care about a match. Make me care about an event. And he did that. And Karen did it as well. We had to give credit to her too. She had a really
she was better
just
than
a fantastic
Jeff was.
promo.
And
yeah, because she was being a real person. That's what's so funny. We're so much now of wrestling, and it's so weird is that we talk about and we bemoan and these guys don't know how to cut promos and these guys can't Whenever anybody is given an opportunity to just speak like a fucking human being, they're always fine.
It's
funny.
Which is why Bray Wyatt does not connect with us, and why I believe he's ceasing to connect with the wrestling fan at large. He's a cartoon character, and we don't want that anymore.
Yeah, nobody wants that in 2015.
No, he's a fucking cartoon, and whenever people, like you're saying, connect with you on a real level, that's what's hitting people in the gut these days. You know, Karen Jarrett went out there and basically buried TNA for the first half of that promo.
Yes.
Yeah. On TNA's show. But
essentially saying, fuck them, no, you can't go, you can't do it, leave the phone, hang it up.
Yeah, and you know, she said, look, I love my husband, and he's been busting his ass for the last 2 years to put TNA behind him and start up something new, and I didn't want him to do this. I didn't want to be back here. She's burying the company on their TV show. And then, you know, she got very emotional, and it ended up coming full circle. And, you know, Sanjay Dutt, of all people, pulled her aside. I've got such a kick out of her bringing up Sanjay Dutt, who
to a pop too, like holding it. That was the best part too. She's like, I had a deep friend, and then she held it, and everyone's like, oh, who is it? And they said Sanjay Dutt, and they still went, woo! too. Like I was like, really? Like,
yeah, I mean,
I thought that was my favorite part of the whole promo. Was everyone's like, "Oh, who's that big name?" And she said Sanjay Dutt, and they're like, "Yeah, Sanjay Dutt." I was like,
I
"Really?"
got such a kick out of that. I mean, most people or some people, I guess some people listen to this know. I mean, Sanjay Dutt's a big part of what's going on with Global Force.
Sure.
He's essentially Jarrett's right-hand man, the Silvio Dante to Jarrett's Tony Soprano, so to speak. And I just, for whatever reason, I got such a kick out of her bringing him up. And, it's a former TNA guy. So the TNA fans, like you said, pop for that. But she didn't have to mention him by name. But she was just shooting from the hip. And that's who gave her the little chat and said, look, this probably means a lot to Jeff on a personal level. And that really put the promo over the top, and then she started to cry, and that is just great stuff.
Yeah. Well, and another thing too, and you mentioned, I kind of forgot to mention this, and I wanted to, and I mentioned it when I talked about Kevin Owens, and I wrote the article, and we've talked about it numerous times about Kevin Owens, is that there's also the element that he's actually a human being that like does stuff and like has a life, and that's what we got in that promo too. He's talking about, I was on the plane and my phone, and then I decided this and I did that or whatever. Whereas contrast that to Raw, where Roman Reigns and Bray Wyatt are in this like dream world where Bray Wyatt's like kidnapping his daughter and like bringing her to the arena, or what, you know what I mean? It's like, what is this? Like, whereas when you can actually buy into it and say, yeah, I believe that Jeff Jarrett was on a plane, he saw TNA and said, oh God, what are you calling me for? Said no, came back, said, hey, let me see what they wanted. Like, that's all real stuff. And then having a conversation with Karen, like real human beings would potentially have, and then another person sort of saying, giving their opinion, like it's all real. It's people being humans, and that's what people want out of wrestling these days in 2015, is that, whereas you contrast it to Raw, and like Bray Wyatt is kidnapping people's daughters, and
not only that, I mean,
it's just like, what are we doing?
You don't even have to go as far as the cartoonish Bray Wyatt shit, but everyone in WWE, everyone on Raw lives in their wrestling tights.
Right. What does Seth Rollins do?
Well, you're right. They all live in their tights, and they
live at the arena.
They all watch TV by standing next to it instead of in front of it.
Right.
And
I don't know about you. That's how I do it. So.
And it's like, and that's exactly what you're talking about here. It's like, we don't know anything about, they're just all, to some extent, zany characters. And it's funny how the ones that are real people are the ones that, shockingly get over. Kevin Owens comes in and he's a real person and he's the hottest act in the company. And that's not an accident. It really isn't. And it's like these Finn Balor pieces that they're doing on NXT last week, this week, and the third one is next week. I mean, we both said it on Twitter. They're insane for not playing these things on Raw.
Yeah.
And this, they had one for Hideo Itami, a few weeks prior to that. It humanizes these people, and it makes them so much more likable than anything that their writers can do. Their writers can never do as an effective job of getting these people over and making you care about them as these personality profiles can do. And I'll tell you, it's not only Finn Balor who is getting over strong on these Finn Balor pieces, but it's Becky Lynch too.
Yes. Yep.
It's getting two people over stronger than you could ever get them over with the terrible
in the way
writing.
Of exactly. Yeah. Her describing Finn Balor and what he meant to her career is in turn making people sympathize. It's perfect. It's so, and I mentioned, the Roman Reigns documentary that was on the 24/7 or whatever was a fantastic one. There's no reason they couldn't have cut up the interviews or stuff like that and played it on Raw. But no, we don't have time for that on Raw, Joe. We only have 3 minutes and 20, or we have 3 hours and 25 minutes. We don't have time for that sort of stuff. We got to get going. Like,
I know.
And when I mention it to people go, oh, well, people tune out, or, people go away, or, people leave or whatever. You're not chasing the rating, like, segment by segment ratings anymore.
Hold on,
like,
the fourth authority segment doesn't chase.
Exactly, that's what I mean. Like, everyone's gonna be like, "Well, I'm sticking around to see what this." Like,
don't you think if you put something that looked fresh and different and
absolutely
broke the repetitive pattern? This show has been exactly the same since 2002. Raw has not changed fundamentally in its pattern, other than adding an extra hour since like 2002. You mean to tell me if you do something a little different, that would catch people's attention, not lose
I agree. That's absolutely what I think.
So, that's an insane argument. People who are making that argument are out to lunch. And they're probably the same people who complain about how boring the show is. So they can't have it both ways. You know what I mean? It's like, why not change it up and try something else? I mean, they call this the reality era. And, I wasn't sure how I felt about that, but in some ways it really is. And there seem to be some people who are in charge who just, they're fighting that. And
Yeah.
I think it'd be a lot easier to get everybody. Hey, look at the ESPN. Did you see the E60 thing with Adam Rose and
Yeah, that's another one that we talked about that at the time. That was another one that was like a wake up call. Like, oh my God, Adam Rose is actually a cool dude, and I would actually root for him if this was what we got. But then we don't get presented that. We get presented a faux Russell Brand thing, which is not even relevant. It's really bizarre. Yeah, because that was at the same time. We had the E60. We had one of the NXT specials. What else was it? There was something else that.
there was the Hideo Itami thing. There was the E60 thing.
There was just a lot all around that WrestleMania weekend or whatever, and it was just like so refreshing to see.
And last year
these
too,
people.
at the New Orleans, they had the Daniel Bryan documentary.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Him talking to his sister or whatever, and that's I think that's a big reason why Daniel Bryan got over too, is because people kind of knew him, for what he was, or a lot of the independent fans knew him from those that the Wrestling Road Diaries DVDs and just stuff like that. I mean, just you just kind of knew him if you followed him on the independent scene, and that's all these guys that are coming up. And we see the NXT tryouts, we saw those. These are all guys that people know, and we're beating it. I mean, everybody kind of knows this that we talked to.
We're kind of
here,
gotten off the path here with TNA, but I mean.
Yeah, but no, I think it was a contrast though, because then you looked at a lot of the other stuff on this show, and it was such over the top characters, and that's why it was you kind of get lost in a TNA episode that you normally see. I mean, our reviews sort of indicate that as well, and when you watch it, that's sort of what it is. Whereas this happened, and it snapped you into reality, and that's the buzz surrounding it. It's not really quantifiable quite yet. We'll have to see in a few weeks or at Slammiversary or whatever. But looking at the buzz, I went back on Twitter. I'm looking at stuff. People were taken aback by it, interested, and really more people were talking about TNA than I've heard in months. In a positive light, at least.
And it's kind of like what you were alluding to in the beginning. Humanizing these people can make anyone interesting. I mean, you're someone who's never been interested in Jeff Jarrett, and humanizing him made him interesting in your eyes. Adam Rose, no one gave a shit about it, but that E60 made him interesting. It just, what had you more excited about Slammiversary? The Jarretts and their heartfelt promo, or Mickie James getting pushed in front of a train?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like shit evolves, man. It's constantly evolving and changing. I mean, that was a laughing stock. Mickie James getting shoved in front of the train. That's not what people want, and that's really why I talked last week about. Maybe Bray Wyatt needs to be repackaged, because maybe wrestling's moving in a direction that's never going to allow that character to truly thrive. Well, who knows? But back to TNA. Let's not.
Yes, yeah.
Speaking of, trains and tracks, we're getting thrown off track here. But Impact overall, I thought, now look, most weeks it's a pretty average show. It's inoffensive. It's not great. I think we've talked about this before. I think people have gone a little crazy saying that it's actively good or very enjoyable. Look, it's been a decent show. It hasn't been offensive. This was a pretty good episode of Impact. I don't want to go nuts about it, but it held my attention all the way through. It was perfectly entertaining. None of the matches were great, but none of the matches were terrible either. All of the matches were perfectly average, But for the first time in what has to be months, if not years, Impact had a little juice. Now, granted, it was because of shortcuts. It was because of bringing back the Jarretts as a shock. It was because of Matt Morgan showing up out of nowhere and Vader showing up out of nowhere. And I mean, those are shortcuts. You can't do those things every week. Okay, those are 1 week fixes if you want to make something exciting. That's what surprises do for you. You can't bust surprises out on a weekly basis, especially but this was the perfect week to have a shortcut show like this.
Yes, yeah.
Because it was kind of sort of live on the 1 hour delay. So a lot of the stuff, you could avoid it easily if you didn't want to be spoiled on it. And they were also setting
But,
up.
are you sure? Because Josh Matthews was telling me to tweet because they were live and they were going to start showing live tweets.
You know, it's one thing.
Are you telling me Josh Matthews is lying about being live?
Do you find that a little insulting? I mean, I kind of do.
I do. Because I thought, because I know that they said they were kind of live to tape or whatever. I know people sort of joked about it, but then like Impact Open, when I watched it, it was like, we are live. I swear we're live. Like, come on, send your tweets. Live. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just like, all right, dude. Like, you can kind of do it in a way where you're not outwardly like lying to everybody.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't know exactly what you say, but screaming the first thing that we are live from the Impact
And they were
Zone,
really pounding it home too. And,
yeah,
all
that was
really
a little
does,
odd.
All that really does too for the regular viewer is all that really does is scream that it's old shit from the can every other week.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All that other week's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, but anyway, it was the perfect week to kind of do a shortcut show and give it a little juice because it was kind of sort of live and because they were setting up two of their bigger shows with, you know, the big impacts that they were taping for the following week and Slammiversary. So this was a good week to inject the show with a little bit of juice. So I don't know. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it. I didn't think it was a great show, but it held my attention, and I thought for the first time ever, it had a little juice. What did you think about Impact?
I agree. I'm right with you. I think, and I'm somebody who I don't outwardly avoid Impact, but I, unless somebody says, hey, this is a really good episode, I'll skim it here and there. But I watched this entire episode and I didn't really, there was no point where I was ever really bored. I was kind of into it. And like you said, it just felt like it had juice. Like every single match was adequate. It seemed the creative was pretty okay as well. There was nothing that was too, you know, overtly offensive, and there wasn't, you know, Mickey James, like you said, the Mickey James getting thrown in front of a, you know, a train or whatever. Because they're wanting to do some pretty dumb stuff. I mean, TNA that's. But everything here was pretty okay. I mean, like EC3, I thought that was a really cool angle at the beginning. You know, him and Angle cutting promos between one another. I thought Vader's debut was done in an interesting way, or not debut, but sort of appearance was done in an interesting way. And I thought, the Dirty Heels. I'm blanking on what the hell am I? Why am I blanking on? Wolves, yeah, duh. Why was I blanking on that? Thought that was a really, good segment. Not a blow-away match, not a great match, but I thought it was okay. And I thought like everything was fine. Everything was just okay. It was a very inoffensive episode of Impact, and you don't get that too often. But at the end of the day, it was, for the first time in a long time, it was over. And I said, you know what? I'm kind of curious what's next.
Yes.
I want to see the next, because I don't get that with Impact. Usually Impact's over and I'm like, I am good for a few months. Like, what I mean? Like, because they throw 7,000 things at the window, nothing gets over. Nobody gets, there's nothing compelling. And you're just like, okay, I think I'm done for a while. Like you're done with the show and you're just exhausted. You're
it's
like
the
sweating.
Most disposable wrestling show around is what you're getting at.
Yeah, and you're like, well, okay, I'm sweating because everything was going so fast and so quick, but yet I got nothing out of it, and I don't really care to watch it again for a while. But this one, I was generally like, it was over, and I was, what? I'm kind of curious where this goes.
Every segment on the show built to something, either on the big Impact they have coming up or the Slammiversary, and it was just, everything was simple and direct. I didn't, like I said, I don't think any of the matches were anything special. Kurt Angle just can't go anymore. And the match with Matt Hardy didn't start until there was like 7 minutes left in the show, which might not be the worst thing when it comes to Kurt Angle right now.
No, Matt Hardy wasn't happy about that, but did you see that tweet?
I did not.
Here, let me fire it up. Something about he was less than thrilled that Jeff Jarrett took some of his time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can kind of understand that, but at the same time, that's what everyone's talking about today is Jeff Jarrett. No one's talking about Matt Hardy. So, and I don't think if Matt Hardy had an extra 7 minutes that would change. Do you?
No.
So I don't know. But I can see where he's coming from. That's the perils of going sort of live, I guess. It is.
Yeah, here's this tweet. Neat that a competing talent showed up on TNA TV, but I felt a long-winded Jarrett cut into my TV time tonight. Not sure how I feel about that.
The thing about it is,
and that could be a work too.
It could be, but here's the thing, though: the Jarretts were by far the most compelling thing on that show. So Matt Hardy should probably just pipe down.
He probably should.
If they went out there and had an average promo, or it didn't create any buzz, or nobody cared, or it was just business as usual, I can kind of see his point. But that was by far the most compelling thing on the show. So,
Yeah, and that's what everybody was talking about when the show was over. They weren't talking about if they had 7 more minutes, like you said, Matt Hardy and Kurt Angle. I don't think we would be leading off talking about that match.
no. So,
we
Matt,
were going to lead off talking about Jarrett, so it's fine.
so,
Just chill.
Matt, you got a new baby. Things are going well for you.
Yeah, I was going to say you have more important things to worry about. Don't worry about
Let you
this.
pipe down, Matt. All right. No one really cared about your match with Angle to begin with.
Be happy. You've just had a beautiful baby join your life. So just, chill.
We care about Angle EC3. No one cares about your stupid match with Kurt Angle. Now I'm starting to turn. Before I was
I'm sorry.
sort of on the fence about that, but now I'm kind of annoyed at Matt Hardy. He probably needs to just pipe down. You just keep your mouth shut. And it also caused me to lose my train of thought. But yeah, so now we've got some direction for Slammiversary, and of course we had the big spoiler that popped up right before we started. I don't know if you saw it or if you want to talk about it.
No, I don't think I did.
But for the taping, I believe EC3 defeated Kurt Angle.
Oh wow, okay.
So I might want to double check that.
We've already spoiled it for everybody. So.
Well, I mean, look, news is news. People don't want to be spoiled. Go hide in a cave somewhere. I don't know what you want me to tell you. What to do. You know how I feel about that.
I do.
Let's see.
EC3. This is really exciting. Let's see.
Wait for the timestamp. Wait for Joe Gagney then, because
exactly.
We're gonna spoil shit. Okay, so if you don't want to hear spoilers on here, you can wait 12 hours for the.
Yes. So you are correct. Yes, you were right. So
EC3 won the title.
Yep.
And
I'll put a little note at the beginning of the show post too. It says we do spoil TNA if you care. So
at roughly the 30-minute mark or whatever.
Right.
So, and now we have some direction for Slammiversary, whereas as of the week before they had announced literally nothing. Now we have some direction, and I've seen some people criticize TNA for stacking the Impact taping because the 5th match between the Wolves and the Dirty Heels is going to be on free TV. Obviously, the EC3 Angle match, which has been the biggest match the company can potentially put together, is on free TV. And, EC3 is in a tag match at Slammiversary, and I think Austin Aries is facing one of the members of the Wolves at Slammiversary instead of a tag match, things of that nature. So really the big hook for Slammiversary is the King of the Mountain match with Jarrett. And I can't really kill them for that because like we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, because of the nature of the way the tapings fell and, you don't want to go all 1991 on it, I can't really rip them for scheduling these matches the way that they did. You can't they were between a rock and a hard place, and I probably would have went the same way that they did. So from that perspective, I don't mind. Do you have the Slammiversary card?
Yeah, I'm trying to see because the problem is we're probably getting new matches that are being announced at the show right now. I'll do what we have right now.
Yeah.
As far as what's been on the website or what at least people have been able to cobble together. Okay, yeah, here I got 7 matches here.
That's probably the whole show.
Yeah, that's probably going to be it. So I think we're good. So again, we probably are spoiling this for something, but who cares? I mean, for God's sakes, stop. Who cares? But anyway, Davey Richards, Austin Aries is the singles match where the winner gets to pick the stipulation for the match 5 and the best of the. Oh yeah, that we knew about that one. So what's going to happen is Davey Richards and Austin Aries, whoever wins them will pick the stipulation for the final Dirty Heels Wolves match. So that'll be a little weird. The match is taking
place tonight.
Yeah, so it'll be a little weird where that one will be spoiled.
So
for the
no matter what, there's just continuity error. They couldn't have completely avoided.
It's continuity. And like we said, we we're the people that hate TNA. We've been fully saying that. Look, they were dealt a bad hand here. There was nothing they could do.
Part of that bad hand was their own doing.
Oh, absolutely. But there's a lot.
They were in a tough spot.
Exactly. There was going to be issues. There was going to be continuity stuff. When Destination America said, hey, by the way, you're moving to Wednesday now. Bye. No choice. Okay, there you go. Bye. So, yeah, it is their own doing, yes. But, yeah, at the same time, so as funny as it is to sort of point and laugh at them for this particular thing, this one's a little bit. I'll give them a little bit of a break on this one. We got Bram versus Matt Morgan. That was sort of teased, or at least I think it was teased made on Impact, so we knew that.
Set up on Impact, yeah.
Yep.
Matt Morgan saved Vader.
Yes.
From Bram's wrench attack. I mean, I have no interest in Bram or Matt Morgan. I mean, neither one of those guys.
Yeah, that's
single thing. I'm more interested in Vader than either one of those guys.
Yeah, I hope Vader comes out here and that's a nice callback. The wrench. Do you remember that from 1990? It was like early '98 Vader. He hit Kane. He ran in once and hit Kane with a wrench.
hasn't the wrench been Bram's weapon of choice as well?
Oh, has it? I don't know. Is it?
I'm not positive on that, but
It's a good weapon.
I think it is.
ROH is taking it now too. Everyone's wielding a wrench. This is a very wrench heavy week.
Yeah.
We'll talk to that in a little bit. All right, Lashley and Mr. Anderson versus Ethan Carter the third and Tyrus in a tag match.
Yeah.
That is a random ass match, but
again, they just threw it together to give him something to do on the pay-per-view, and
yeah,
so there you go.
All right, 3-on-2 handicap match, the Dollhouse, one of your favorite teams in the world right now, versus Awesome Kong and Brooke.
I mean, what do you want me to say?
The Dollhouse is creepy, man.
I'm with you. I think
for,
it's by
for all these people, I know what it is, but everyone that's screaming to the high heavens about sexism and all this sort of stuff, and you have, it's
move on.
I mean, they're meant to be
move on.
Pedophile. Here, one sec. My dog is about to hang himself on a cord. One sec.
That's not good.
No, he's got like a window here. Yeah, Hans. Let's not do that. No. Oh.
As Hans attempts suicide here on the show, maybe Rich is mistreating these dogs. Who knows? This dog's trying to off himself while recording a podcast here. This is unbelievable.
Oh, we're back. All right. The blinds.
Don't worry. I kept the listeners engaged while you were taking the noose off of the dog's neck.
Yeah, because there was like the blinds. There's like the a little cord for the blinds or whatever, and somehow they had gotten in a circle, and somehow his neck got in one of the circles there, and he kept like walking.
Is Hans attempting suicide here?
He might be, because he was like walking towards me, and then he was like trying to jump up onto a way of like an ottoman next to this, and he was trying to jump out of there and then jump off, and I'm like, no, God, like
did Hans overhear you guys talking, and has he found out he was adopted?
That is a distinct possibility that yes, he did hear that we got him from a shelter. So
it's
that he's not true. Yeah.
He's not a true member of the Craich family.
No, we don't even know. He's not. We're not even sure if he's. We know he's a dachshund, but he could be something else.
He's probably, he's got.
Could be a mutt. We don't even know. Yeah, we don't know.
He thinks he's one of these mutts who's the offspring of a stripper and a drug dealer.
Yeah, we have no idea. Yeah,
and it's like it's depressing him.
His parents are crack addicts, and we helped him out. Or
right. And I could understand why he would just want to end it all.
He had a good day today too. Like he went out on top. Like it was a nice day. He ran around a lot, so he's probably like, yeah, you know what? Hey,
it's not going to get any better than this.
Yeah, this is a good run.
Because he's.
I didn't get yelled at today. I didn't pee in the house or poo in the house. I was good all day. So yeah,
you're going to have to keep an eye on him now.
He's on the bed. He's on our bed now, so we'll see how he's doing. He's curling into a blanket, so I think he's okay. But he's just depressed. He's sad. Now he's at that point. It was that close, and now he's got to cool down a little bit.
It's all the Impact talk.
Exactly. Yeah, that was probably. He's like, dear God, talking to Japan.
Well, all right. So moving on from the Dollhouse.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I did enjoy the angle that they shot Taryn Terrell's boobs last night on the show.
Yes. Yeah, they were. They were looking. I never knew that Taryn Terrell had quite the.
She's got quite the rack, which she showed off liberally when she was on that awful HBO show. What the hell was the name of that show? It took place in New Orleans. Treme, I believe it was called. It was a terrible show, but she was frequently naked in that show.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good.
She's well known for her tremendous rack. I'm surprised this is the first you're hearing about this. But what's the?
No, I've heard of it, but I didn't really quite. I didn't quite appreciate it until she was sitting.
Some angle they were using, huh?
In a dollhouse, and they were with their pigtails, laughing and wearing skirts and. Definitely being 12-year-old hot teens, but that's all right. Hot underage teens, but that's fine. Billy Corgan, progressive, right?
Just move on. I don't know.
Jesse Goddard versus Robbie E.
This is it, man. The
big one. Did you see what I tweeted out earlier? That one of the keywords that came to the site this week was Jesse Goddard's wrestling moves.
Yeah, what is up with that? And how did that lead someone back to our site? Because I don't think we've ever. Well, maybe it was in an Impact review or something, but otherwise,
I gotta imagine we're pretty low on the Jesse Goddard's mention for like if you're gonna look up Jesse Goddard's wrestling moves, I think there's probably 1,000 websites that would more likely bring you to what you're looking for than us. But
Jesse
apparently
Goddard's follows us. And
does he really?
Yes, he does, and he may be listening to this. So.
Oh well, hi Jeff. Yeah. Maybe he was looking for himself. So
it's very possible.
Anyway, yeah, the big blow off here. I know you can't wait. I can't wait. This is just going to be a spectacular blow off. All right, we have all of our King of the Mountain. Are you ready?
They were slow rolling them all day long as we record this, but now all of the participants are out there.
Yeah, it's a pretty good match, actually. We got, of course, Jeff Jarrett, Matt Hardy, Eric Young, Drew Galloway, and MVP. That's about as good as you're going to get.
That's as good as you're going to get. I mean,
yeah, that's pretty damn good.
Who else would you put in the damn thing that isn't in it? I mean, maybe Lashley. I don't know if he's available. Oh, he's in the tag match. Yeah. So, I mean, that's as good as it gets. Look, Slammiversary is a one-match show. It's all about that King of the Mountain match. Are they doing anything with Velvet Sky and Angelina Lowe? I guess not.
Not that I see. Not that's listed right now, but possibly yes. But yeah, right now, no.
They got way too much time on Impact, which with Velvet Sky is
that was a really long match. So, and it wasn't like awful, but it was
bad.
Long.
Yeah.
No, it was a pretty good match. When it was over, I went, that wasn't bad. Like I'm actually kind of shocked. Like I really didn't mind that as a match.
There's
like I didn't think these two were
sliding scale for amount of time that Velvet Sky gets, and then how bad the match ultimately ends up being. This one didn't end up that bad for the amount of time.
It just kept going. Yeah, it kept going and going. I thought it was gonna be over in like 2 minutes, but no. That thing went like 10 minutes long, and it was pretty solid. But yeah, I see nothing from them right now. That might be the next Impact. There is also James Storm versus Magnus. I did not mention that. The big blow off there. We're done kicking babies and throwing wives in front of trains. We're gonna settle it in a wrestling ring now. So
the one thing I'll say about a lot of the matches on there, aside from like the thrown together tag and things, is they've all at least been legitimately built up.
Yeah.
So you can't really complain about it from that perspective. But there's no question that the Impact taping is the more, no pun intended, impactful show than the Slammiversary. So, you're going to get the title change. You're going to get match 5 between the Wolves and the Dirty Heels, which, by the way, match number 4 did nothing for me.
No, that was really disappointing. Yeah, no, you're not alone in that. I was very disappointed by that. I went in with big expectations, and there were just not really a whole lot there. It was just kind of, it didn't do much for me at all. And I don't think it did much for Garrett either, from our Impact reviewer. I think he kind of had the same thing too, where he was just kind of like, meh, that could have been a lot better. Because they're absolutely capable. We've seen it. They're absolutely capable of having really good matches. But this didn't do much for me at all.
Yeah, I agree. Match didn't do much for me. But so that's TNA. I mean, now the big thing here is, what are Jarrett's motives?
Yes, we got a little bit of insights today to an extent, but we're still kind of basing off rumors and hearsay, so we don't know exactly. But it looks like there's going to be some involvement of TNA and Global Force Wrestling. Do you have any details on that, or what you've heard?
Nothing that you probably haven't read today either. But it seems like, look, I can see why Jarrett is doing this from the perspective of, it puts Global Force on TV since he hasn't been able to secure TV. So, last night he was able to give Global Force Wrestling exposure to how many viewers did they do last night? 400,000 that they've been doing?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Somewhere in there, and I know Ring of Honor.
When you added the two, they had 311, I think was their live showing, and then I think when you combined, so somewhere around 400.
The live showing did 311?
I think so. Let me see. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, somebody's going to get really mad, but let me. I don't think
know
it did very
the two
well.
Combined showings, Ring of Honor is right on their tail now. When you combine the live and the tapes, which has got to be scary for TNA.
Let's see. TNA 9 p.m. I'm sorry, it was 369. It's not good either. And then TNA at midnight. Dave had a mistake, didn't type midnight properly, so it's midnight. Is 82,000 viewers.
Right.
It's MIDNGIHT. Not even close.
Yeah. That's Dave. So what's Ring of Honor got?
Ring of Honor was 185 for the 8 p.m. showing, and then at 11 p.m., surprisingly, 145. They do pretty well on that 11 p.m.
So, right on their heels.
Not bad.
They kind of fell behind week 2 and 3.
They did. They closed the gap a lot this week. And rightfully so. I mean, they had a really good show.
Do you think there's anything to the idea that people wanted to see these great New Japan matches? I find that hard to believe because, I mean, New Japan World has like 3,000 subscribers that are non-Japanese. And
yeah, but a lot of the holdup, and we know this from people that we talk to, and if go on like a Reddit or go on like a forum or leave sort of our bubble, and the people hate the fact that it's Japanese commentary. Like that's the first, every time that I used to post a review on Reddit or I would talk on Reddit, someone would say, or say I would put a preview, like we would put a preview for Dominion or whatever. Someone would say, is this available in English commentary? Would be the absolute first question. And then like 10 other people would ask that. So I really do think that's a big holdup, is that with New Japan World, it's still Japanese commentary.
And to be fair, we're not talking about millions of viewers here. You can make a substantial percentage difference when you're dealing with just 200,000 viewers. So, if 40,000 people decide to watch Ring of Honor because they want to sample Shinsuke Nakamura, that's a speck on WWE's ass, but it's a huge difference percentage-wise when you're only doing in the neighborhood of 300,000 total viewers or 200,000 or whatever it is. So there probably is something to that. But with that said, TNA had incredible buzz all day, teasing big surprises, and they did an awful number.
Yeah.
So it's
who the hell knows?
it's hard to predict out. Now, if the Ring of Honor show drops without, that's it for the New Japan talent on that show now, correct? There's nothing left.
Because that was the last of the. Yeah, I believe so. That was. I mean, well, yeah. God, that was the best of the best. You got right there. I mean, I don't know what else.
So we'll see what happens.
Be left.
If it drops back to the same level, then we can reasonably conclude that the New Japan stuff made a difference this week. So. They're way too close to Ring of Honor to TNA for comfort.
Yeah.
Is that less than 100,000 when you combine the two?
That
numbers?
Is. Let me do a. I'm terrible at math
here. So
as
the get your little cell phone out with your little calculator app.
Oh boy, I don't know where my cell phone is.
All right, well, give me. I got a calculator.
I'm gonna do the calculator. No, I'm gonna do the
calculator
on the computer. Yeah, it is right here. 185 plus 145. We have 330 for ROH.
Okay.
In total, and then 396, 82, so 451. So what's it? 451 versus minus 380?
330, you said.
330. Okay.
So they beat them by 121,000 viewers.
Yeah.
It's getting tight. And
yeah.
I don't,
especially when the budgets are a little bit more than that.
So I don't like that live number. I don't like dropping below 400,000.
No.
I don't like that. And I know last week Lucha Underground did 70,000 on El Rey. We don't have the number I won't have a number for that. The place I get it from won't have it till Friday in real time.
Yeah, nothing I'm seeing yet for that one either.
No, it's the only guy who has it is Douglas Pucci.
Yeah.
He goes out and gets it, and he posts it on Friday when he posts the rest of the sports-related ratings on Awful Announcing. So, and he always includes Lucha Underground on the end. He also now includes the entire Wednesday Night Wars on the bottom of that report. If you scroll down the bottom of the page. And he's the only guy who's had Lucha Underground ratings every week consistently. Lucha Underground, a couple of times, has peaked over 100,000. So there's going to be a week at some point where, like, they're right on the ass of Ring of Honor in terms of, because Ring of Honor, there's weeks where they're in the 100,000. What'd they do this week live?
The Ring of Honor?
Yeah, they did 330 combined.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just dropped it again. What was it? 180?
Yeah, so they're in the
183, I believe. Yeah, 183, I believe.
They're in the ones. And there's been weeks where Lucha Underground on El Rey. 185, sorry. 185 has done, 100,000. Not consistently. They've pretty much settled into about the 70,000 range from what I've seen. They rarely dip all the way down to the 30 and 40,000 range, which they were doing, which were just embarrassing numbers at times. And there was one show where they did like 8,000 viewers. But to be fair, I think that was a holiday. I forget what holiday it was, but they did like 8,000 viewers one week. So there's your ratings. But as far as the Ring of Honor show itself, I wanted to get back. We never really got to make that point. I think, from Jarrett's perspective, he exposed Global Force to 400,000 viewers total or whatever it was. Over 400,000 people who watched Impact last night. So I can kind of see where he's coming from. But to me, TNA is such a tarnished brand. And because Jarrett has such a history with TNA, that honestly, I don't think that trade is worth it.
No, yeah, and what we're hearing now, Dave reported this a little bit earlier, is this that while the details are still sketchy with everything regarding the Jeff Jarrett deal with TNA, it will include some form of TNA participation at the July 24th Global Force Wrestling TV taping in Las Vegas. So he says Magnus is believed to be booked on the show, and there may be others. I'm with you, though. I agree that it's good to get buzz, and it's good to generate buzz, and it's good to do this, but I would be as far away and distant from that brand as I could be.
Absolutely.
Do nothing that shows that you're buddy with them. Do nothing that says you're taking ideas for them. Do nothing that says, I mean, even when the 6-sided ring came out, and I understand financially, probably Jeff Jarrett just had one lying around or a connection to something or whatever it is. Even then, I would say, you know what? No, TNA has done the 6-sided ring, and they when you see that ring, you think TNA, and I don't want my product, my brand new promotion, to think anything TNA. I do not want it to be in any way linked to TNA wrestling whatsoever. Because so this, yeah, while it's sort of interesting on that standpoint, yeah, I'm right with you that I think that's such a tarnished brand. I think it's such a volatile, company, and I would have nothing that makes anybody think that when they see my wrestling that they think
that I'm associated with TNA. And because you got to fight that battle enough before you did this, because you're Jeff Jarrett and because you're using a 6-sided ring, and because people are going to see you, if TNA does ultimately fold, they're going to see you as sort of just TNA Part 2, and you're just adding fuel to that fire. And to me, whatever buzz or publicity you get from showing up on TNA, look, it's not powerful enough buzz to be worth that negative trade-off in my mind, to be associated with such a tarnished brand that people just that oftentimes is a laughing stock in the wrestling world. I see it as a mistake, but this is also a guy who's struggling to get on TV, and he might be feeling a sense of desperation. The ballpark shows have not drawn particularly well, and look, he was going to make his money anyway because those were sold shows. But you're not going to get repeat business if they don't do well, because then the minor league teams that hosted the things, or the local promoters that hosted the things, if they're losing their ass, they're not going to be willing to come around for round 2. So those are just, very short-term gains for Jarrett. I don't think you're going to see a lot of these ballpark shows get a second go-round based on the attendance figures. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think it was worth the trade-off. I think TNA is a tarnished brand, but I wouldn't want to be joined at the hip with TNA. It's just, I don't know. Do your own thing.
Yeah,
do your own
I
thing.
agree.
But as far as Ring of Honor last night,
yes, good. It was a good night of wrestling. I did not see Ring of Honor yet. I've tried to watch everything. That's the only one that I have not seen yet, even though I know the second that I have a little bit of chance, I'm definitely going to watch it. But no, I went with TNA first, then I watched a little bit of Lucha Underground, then I watched NXT. But yeah, ROH I have not gotten to, unfortunately.
Yeah, I tweeted about it. I thought it was maybe, the best TV show I've seen in years as far as a wrestling TV show. It's just great. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like, I think it's that episode of Ring of Honor was better than any episode of Lucha Underground to date. And I really like Lucha Underground. And Lucha Underground always delivers in the ring. But this Ring of Honor episode was better than any Lucha Underground episode yet. And really, because I've already seen the matches, it was better than any New Japan on Axis episode yet. But that could be because I've already seen the matches on that show, which, I don't know what, people with fresh sets of eyes all seem to love the New Japan show on Axis. But that aside, this Ring of Honor episode, it was easily the best single episode of wrestling television this year. And I don't even particularly think anything else can come close. And may have been the best episode of wrestling TV that I can think of ever. I mean, I don't know off the top of my head if there's been a better episode of TV than this. But I will say this, with all that said, the Roderick Strong Shinsuke Nakamura match, which was getting all kinds of match of the year buzz and everything else, I don't know what match people watch. That is not a match of the year contender. And I like the match a lot. I thought it was a very good match, but it was disappointing from the standpoint of I was waiting to be blown away, because that match had so much buzz.
It had a lot, yeah. When it was over, we heard from people that were at the tapings that said, "Oh, adjust your match of the month list, adjust your match of the year." I mean, that's the one you're gonna, because everyone was saying what their favorite matches were, and everyone said, "Oh, you don't do those lists yet for the the ROH and New Japan joint shows. Oh, don't do your favorite matches yet until you see this one. This one's gonna blow them all away." And yeah, was it clipped at all? Did anybody ever respond to you? I know you mentioned or at least asked, was it clipped at all? Did anybody ever say anything?
It was clipped.
Okay.
They do go to commercial in the middle of the match, and apparently they do chop a few minutes off of it.
But would that be make or break for you? I don't know if I would ever.
Listen,
Yeah.
I never like to judge a match if I don't see every second of it. But the thing is, here's the thing. It was a very good match, and from what I saw, I gave it 4 stars because I didn't know whether it was clipped or not at the time that I rated it. And then I went on Twitter to try to find out, and it turns out it was clipped. What I saw was in the 4-star range. I don't think there's anything missing that is going to push that match into a match of the year contender range for me. I will say that much. I don't know. Look, very good match. Match of the year contender, not a chance. I just don't see it. And I really, and if what was clipped from it was so phenomenal, I don't. They would have clipped something else. You know what I mean? They wouldn't have clipped parts of it that were fantastic. So apparently they're releasing it in full when they put out the special DVD or whatnot. Maybe that was the reason they didn't show it in full on the TV. I don't know. All I know is the 6-man match that was the main event of the TV show, which was the Young Bucks and AJ Styles against Kazuchika Okada or Kazuchika Okada.
Kazuchika, yes.
Sorry, Morrow. And I almost said Forever Hooligans. Roppongi Vice.
That would be impressive. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Roppongi
The
Vice.
return of Alex Kozlov.
Let me tell you something.
The best hour of TV.
Let me tell you something, Rich. That was the match of the year contender on this show. That was phenomenal. That match was incredible. That match might end up on my top 10 matches of the year. Not the Roderick Strong Shinsuke Nakamura match, which, by the way, was still a great match. But when people are telling you that it's a potential match of the year, and it comes in at something around 3 3/4 or 4 stars, you end up being let down. Which is exactly why I always say I hate watching wrestling spoiled, because it can kill these matches sometimes for you. But anyway, the main event was a far superior match. I mean, I've got that at 4.5, and I was tempted to go 4 3/4 on it. What a match! And let me tell you, I don't always love, these crazy Young Bucks 6-man matches. There was one at a Ring of Honor taping earlier this year. I believe ACH was on the opposite side of it. I don't remember all the particulars. Do you know the match I'm talking about? It was AJ and the Bucks against ACH, and I forget who the other 2 guys were. Roderick Strong may have been one of them. I don't remember the particulars. People said that match was a match of the year contender. I came away very underwhelmed with that match. Great match. 4-star match.
I know the exact one you're talking about. I'm forgetting who else is there, but I remember that conversation at the time as well.
Yeah,
but
great match, 4-star match. Not even close to a match of year contender. Then you had from Best in the World, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, AJ and the Bucks against the Kingdom. Good match. Did not connect with me.
Yeah, it didn't do much for me either. So I'm with you on that.
And there were a lot of people saying that was that was fantastic.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, it's one of those things that a year ago or whatever, I was so into every little Young Bucks, super crazy stuff. I think I've just seen it so many times now, and I think I don't know what it is exactly. I just feel like I've lost a little bit of the luster, because I feel like those should be up my alley, and they used to be up my alley. Those sort of matches, like 2 years ago, that exact same match I would love. But it's just
this match will connect with you.
Okay, all right, I can't wait.
This was phenomenal. I mean, this just, especially after watching the 6-man they had against the Kingdom at Best in the World, this just, the Kingdom, nice little wrestlers, okay? Nice little wrestlers. Your little Mike Bennett's, your little Tavens, okay? This was AJ and the Bucks against great wrestlers, and that was the difference. This was Okada. This was Rocky Romero. This was Trent, who's on fire. And the difference in quality between those 2 matches was staggering. And trust me, it had nothing to do with the Bucks and AJ. It was the Kingdom. The Kingdom cannot work at the level of these other New Japan talents. They just can't. They're just not there. Okay? And watching these 2 matches exemplifies that. One was a decent little 3-star match on the pay-per-view, which was probably the 3rd or 4th best match on the show. The other was a fucking match of the year. One of the I'm telling you, Rich, think of some of the best Dragon Gates.
It's better delivered now. Again, if it does, okay, all right, because you're setting me up.
I know what you like. You're gonna love this match, and think of the best Dragon Gate 6-mans you've seen, where everything just fucking clicks.
Yeah,
and the timing is impeccable. The spots are insane.
I'm sure the crowd's going apeshit during it, right?
And you just come away thinking, how were humans able to be this great in a wrestling ring? You know those kind of matches that
Yeah,
I'm
oh yeah,
talking
oh yeah.
about, and that you seen. This was every bit as good as any one of those Dragon Gate matches you've seen. And but when you sit back, when I sat back and thought about it last night, look at the participants.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, these are the
they're
best
all very
wrestlers
good.
in the world. You have the best tag team in the world. You have AJ Styles, who's arguably the best wrestler in the world. You've got Okada, who's arguably one of the best wrestlers in the world. When he's on top of his game, arguably the best. Rocky Romero, who's insanely is that guy a pro's pro or what?
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, when you've got Rocky Romero in a match,
He's
and
great.
you've got Mike Bennett in a match, I mean, it's like you're comparing fucking shit to steak. I mean, it's not even close. And then you got Beretta, who's been on fire.
He's been so good.
Beretta
Yeah,
was so good in this match too. Wait till you see this. I'm telling you.
I can't. Yeah, he's been really. I mean, I'm a guy who's never really been a huge fan of him. Even when people were loving his like superstar stuff, I thought they were okay. And I wasn't a huge fan. Man, everything he's done in 2015, I have loved. Like the single, like Best of Super Junior has really opened my eyes to, man, this guy's really super talented. And seeing him live too. I saw him and Romero live at a Ring of Honor in Chicago, and I was like, I just came away so impressed by what he can do and his presence in the ring and how he conducts himself. So he's been on fire. So I absolutely believe you when you say that.
This match was magic. It was one of those magical matches where everything worked. And there was a spot toward the end of this match which I thought was so good. The Bullet Club team gave a triple super kick to the Chaos team, and Roppongi Vice sold it like death. They went barreling out of the ring and through the ropes. But Okada did the fighting spirit no sell, and he took the super kick from Styles. And they're setting up the Okada Styles match, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he did and it was just such perfect timing for a fighting.
They mentioned it too.
No-sell.
They mentioned it on the TV as well, right? That's coming up.
Honestly, I don't remember.
I thought I thought I read somewhere that they said that, which is kind of cool. I like that.
I was just going ape shit for the match, Rich.
You were screaming, yeah.
It was one of those matches that had me popping off my couch and making annoying noises. It was so good. And he no-sold that super kick and did the fighting spirit, and he charged up and he got nose to nose with AJ. But you know what was so great about it is then they just gave him a triple super kick and knocked him out anyway. It was such a great spot.
I do like that. Yeah, that's a cool
That's an incredible spot. I hate to spoil it for you, but I mean, that was an incredible spot. And this was just one of those matches where everything just clicked perfectly. The crowd was into it. All six guys were at the top of their game. And I can't say enough about it. It has a real good chance of making my top 10 matches of the year. So, and to me, when you combine that with the fact that you had a really, really good Nakamura Roderick, look, it sounds like I didn't like them. I really love that match too. It just wasn't a match of the year level match. And then, sandwiched in between was the Michael Elgin Gato match, which was a perfectly competent television match. And I thought Elgin looked really good in that match. And Gato always looks good. So to me, in terms of, an hour of television or a wrestling television show, doesn't get much better. That's got to be top 5 all time for me. And I don't want to come on here and scream that it was the best I don't know that. I mean, I don't have a list of the best TV shows I've ever seen. You know what I mean? I don't keep track of stuff.
Someone's going to force you to. Someone's going to scream that they need your list right now.
But I honestly can't think of a wrestling show that I've ever seen that was better than that one. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
in real time, there were some episodes of ECW when I was 19 years old that I probably thought, I know for a fact, where I couldn't sleep after I watched them because I thought they were so good. The one with the Malenko Guerrero Classic. I could not sleep after I watched that show.
It's hard to pick anything that's not a 2 hour, that's not an hour show, because in an hour you can really just have everything be good. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if there's ever been a 2 hour Raw that even we talk about the glory days, 97, 98, where there's ever been a Raw in general that was like even 2 hours that everything was just good and everything just clicked and it was a fan. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
there's always something.
You're
there.
absolutely right, because once
there's
shows are
always
2 hours
something
or longer, something's going to drag on them.
It has to. I mean, it cannot be 2 fantastic hours.
So it's got to be an hour show, like you're saying. It's got to be one of those old TBS shows that maybe had a Flair title match or something, or it's got to be something like that. Because you make a great point. I mean, if it's a 2 or 3 hour show, there's going to be something shitty on there, And if you're going to be the greatest television show of all time, you can't have anything shitty. Because a show like this Ring of Honor show had nothing on it that was shitty. everything was really good, or in 2 of the 3 cases, great. So yeah, highly recommend it. This is basically like one of those great Lucha Underground shows, but without like monsters and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what's been killing Lucha Underground for me, because I really liked Lucha Underground on Wednesday too. But again, it's the Mil Muertes stuff and the monsters. That's where they're starting to lose me.
Did you watch this week's show?
I did. I really liked it.
Well, yeah, I thought it was a good show. I thought you were. I assumed I was watching it, and I said, "Oh no, Joe just threw his remote through the TV." When there was that backstage segment with Muertes and Katrina or whatever, and the reanimated
I actually
guys, like the lightning bolt guys. Did you skip that? Okay.
Once I saw that nonsense, I was like,
yeah, I thought you were gonna be like, like just Hulk up.
Can we get to a match, please? It's like,
because everything was great. Everything other than that was like a really good show and a really like good storytelling and all that sort of stuff. And then you had like, and the problem too is it was like weird special effects too. Like they came out of lightning and stuff, and it looked like a high school kid's like Adobe After Effects project or whatever. It was really bizarre. But everything else besides that was a really good show as well. I enjoyed it. NXT was good too. NXT was a nice and solid show as well.
NXT was okay.
It was definitely the worst of the 4,
yes,
I would say,
I
without a doubt. Well, I haven't seen Ring of Honor, but I am gonna go out on a limb.
Yeah. I mean,
by the way you've described it, I am gonna guess that NXT was the lowest of the 4. But
there's no. I saw all 4. I saw all 4, and NXT was the worst of the 4, even with the tremendous Devitt stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, as far as Lucha Underground goes, you know, it's gotten to the point where I really don't pay attention to the backstage stuff, and I fast forward a lot of it, and I want to get to the matches. I think it's a very well booked promotion in terms of storytelling and logic, and everything they do is calculated and ends up making a lot of sense. And the backstage stuff is very well produced. I won't go as far as you claiming that it looks like a high school. I think it's,
no, this particular one. No.
Oh,
usually
the
it is.
bolts and stuff. All right.
Yes. No. No. Absolutely. No. All the time it usually does. For whatever reason, this particular one, I was just like, oh, that looks like crap. Like at the last minute, they told some guy that he had to do it, or there's like an intern, and that was his like project was to do that. Like for people that know, like even if you go back and watch it, you'll see it. It's of all the times they've done really good production, this was not one of them, unfortunately.
And really, you know, aside from, and look, I know I probably sound whiny, or I might, you know, I sound like the old guy where I don't like a lot of the, but the thing is, like, that stuff just doesn't appeal to me. And we spent the first half hour of this show describing why it doesn't appeal to me. I'd rather stick with the reality-based stuff. I don't need monsters in my wrestling. But the only other minor complaint I have about Lucha Underground, and it's something that we talked about a few weeks ago, and I really want to get your take on it, is the booking of Pentagon Jr. and the booking of Sexy Star. It's kind of intertwined, and it kind of sounds like a Sexy Star complaint, but it's really more of a Pentagon Jr. complaint. It's the only example of Lucha Underground's booking that I think has been shit, is the fact that, and we talked about it at the time, Sexy Star should have never beaten Pentagon Jr. That should have never happened.
Agreed. Yeah. And we talked about that weeks ago. Yeah, that was beyond silly at the time when it happened.
Yeah, and I mean,
it's gotten sillier.
And if you didn't want Sexy Star to lose, then you shouldn't have ever paired them up in a feud.
Right, you booked the shit. Yeah, this is the thing that we always get in this argument with WWE people. Well, who's going to lose? I mean, Kofi Kingston had to beat him or whatever. You book it. Just don't do it. Like,
keep those two.
You don't have to do it. Yeah,
but here's what really annoys me, though. Okay, so she beats Superfly for his mask.
Right.
A month and a half ago, whatever it was. And look.
Oh, months ago. That was what, 3 months ago? Yeah, a long time.
So follow me here. So she beats Superfly for his mask, which if you follow Lucha, you knew that was coming because he lost his mask in Mexico. But that's fine because look, how many people watching Lucha Underground know that? I don't have a problem with that. You know, so he lost his mask twice. I mean, all right, maybe some.
Yeah, like someone like me would not have called that.
Yeah, right. Like Rich Craich doesn't know that. So
I really don't. Yeah.
I mean, because you've watched wrestling for a long time, you could have reasonably deduced that she wasn't going to lose her mask because she's pushed harder. But you wouldn't have. But the reason I knew there was no chance she was losing is because I knew that guy had already lost his mask. So it was no big deal for him to lose his mask again, you know, on a show like that. But anyway, that's not my point here. My point is she beat Superfly for his mask, and, you know, they were partners, and they were forced to fight each other for their mask by the evil Dario Cueto, and that's all great. She won, and I have no problem with that, because it's Superfly. Who cares? You know what I mean? I don't have a problem with her beating him for the mask. But then she gets into this feud with Pentagon Jr. Nobody should be beating Pentagon Jr. He should have never lost. He should not lose until it's someone who you're going to push to the fucking moon. That's when he should lose. It shouldn't have been the Sexy Star, and what ultimately ended up being a throwaway match. So she loses. She beats Pentagon Jr., which it makes no sense because he was the hottest act in the company. And then they follow that up with her losing a rematch to Superfly.
Right, in a not particularly good match either.
And it wasn't a good match. It may have been. I'd have to really think about it.
It was on the low end of Lucha Underground matches.
On the low end of Lucha Underground match.
No, you're not wrong. Nobody's wrong saying that. That it was absolutely on that lower end.
Over the last several.
It's an edited show, and that was the result. Think about that.
And
it's a show that very easily could be edited, and that was what they came up with at the end.
The fact is, her then losing. Look, she beat the toughest motherfucker on the roster, arguably, other than Mil Muertes. Is that fair?
Oh, certainly,
and maybe they're on equal footing, or were on equal footing before she
At the point they were, not anymore, but they were,
right. But they killed that because she beat him. But Pentagon Jr. and Mil Muertes, those are the two toughest motherfuckers on the roster, okay? And they've been presented as such. The two toughest monsters, the two unbeatable forces. So she beats him, and then she can't even get by firmly planted in the mid-card Superfly a couple weeks later. I mean,
who she decimated 3 months ago and
beat three. It's like that makes the fact that she lost to Pentagon, that she beat Pentagon Jr. even worse, because she certainly should be running through Superfly. So I had some people make the point. Well, when you lose a mask in Lucha, you always win the rematch, the revenge rematch. Fine, but again, you're booking this shit. Why do they have to have a rematch? Why does she have to face Superfly again? And
I hate that argument. I hate it's not MMA where it's like, well, man, this is the number one and this is the number two guy. Like we have to do this. Like these guys have to. You can book whoever the fuck you want. You can do whatever. You never need to be booked into a corner. You never ever in wrestling need to be booked into a corner.
And you book themselves. You book yourself in the corners. And even if the long-term plan was to have Superfly win the revenge match, and then maybe, I don't read spoilers, and maybe have Sexy Star win a third match, fine. But then why shoehorn the Pentagon Jr. match in between and ruin his momentum? That kills me. The booking of Sexy Star has been horrible, and the booking as a result of Pentagon Jr. has been horrible as a result. There was no reason for him he should have never lost a match to anybody, especially her, especially if she was going to lose to Superfly in the rematch. That really bugs the shit out of me, because at one point in time, Pentagon Jr. was easily the most interesting thing going on this show. And now he has lost to Sexy Star, and now he's going into a feud with Vampiro and a big blow-off match with Vampiro, which I assume is going to take place on their, what are they calling their WrestleMania gimmick? Whatever they're calling it. Ultimate Lucha.
Ultima Lucha or whatever. I think Ultima Lucha, right?
Yeah. So I assume
something like that coming up soon.
Take place there.
I do too. Yeah, I think that's presumed is when that's going to happen. But
and it's like, this guy, they should be pushing him harder than just about anybody else on the roster, and that lost to.
Well, because now when you look at it too, another way to look at it as well. So he loses Sexy Star, and then he goes and challenges like an announcer. You know what I mean? Like,
well, it's going to come out that Vampiro is the master.
No, I know, but you know what
I know what you mean, because
the optics of it are very odd. The optics are this guy who was running through everybody lost, and now he's going to go challenge an announcer.
Yeah.
Like the optics of that seem kind of. Whereas if he ran through everybody and he'd beaten everybody and then challenged Vampiro, then you kind of have an idea of, okay, well, Vampiro's got to be doing something a little bit more than that, you know. Whereas if you take a loss and then go challenge the announcer, it's just silly, you know. It's.
I hear you.
Yeah, but the Sexy Star stuff has been beyond bizarre.
And look, Sexy Star is never going to happen. I mean,
no, I think that's one of the problems. I think a lot of times, and again, we're talking about.
I like her well enough.
Well, and this is kind of the issue with the way they've recorded Lucha Underground, the way everything has been, is that these tapings took, these were the Paraguayo tapings. Like, think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's so far in advance that it's very tough to get a read on who's hot, who's not. You know, they might have thought months ago that Sexy Star was, hey, let's go all the way with her and see what we can do, and it's going to happen or whatever. Whereas now us on TV, 3 weeks ago we knew, okay, this thing is not going to click. It's not happening. but the TV can't change. They can't change week by week. They're kind of stuck with their plan, which
Well, and to be fair, they seem to have plans and stick with them, which is probably why the booking is so good overall.
Exactly. So it's a blessing and a curse. It can do both sometimes.
And if they are going to change things on the fly, it's like you're saying, they really only have the live fans to go off of. And to be honest, the fans that go to that show, everything's over. So it's not
exactly.
Like
they're just happy to be there
because they're great fans who go nuts for everything. So you can't really get a good read based on who's over and with the live audience. And to be fair, I don't think they would change their plans anyway based on that, because they seem very stringent in sticking with the plan. And when you're very stringent in sticking with a long-term plan, that's usually when you have your best booking. And because when you're constantly changing shit on the fly, that, which has been the knock on WWE for so long, that's when your booking is usually shitty. And I do believe that company is probably the best booked company in the world right now in terms of stories that make sense and things moving from A to B to C, and every person on the roster sort of being slotted and having their role
they all have their role. Yeah, and it doesn't feel like at any point anyone's being underutilized or underpushed or whatever. And I absolutely think that Mil Muertes being in the title picture doesn't really seem like it's too illogical, or that there's somebody that's down there and it's like, oh man, like everybody seems to have a spot that they're in. They seem to be happy in that spot. They seem to fit that spot, and there's not this oh man, I wish Angelico was fighting for the championship, or oh they're under pushing. Everybody seems pretty okay where they're at. Yeah,
there's a definite Pearl vibe too, where who's slotted ahead of who in every instance. You know what I mean? And there's positive and negatives to that. But I think that there's more positives than negatives when you book in that manner. It's definitely more of a positive than WWE style, where you have a half a dozen stars, 70 guys in the middle who, and then, a half a dozen guys who are jobbers to the stars. Because the 70 guys in the middle are all on a treadmill. You know what I mean? So even though sometimes Puro booking can be predictable, because you're like, oh, well, this guy's higher on the totem pole than this guy, or here's a tag match and you could instantly see who who the one who doesn't belong is and who's going to take the fall. So whereas that's a minor negative, the positive is there's clear pushes and there's a clear system in place of who's ahead of who. And that's kind of what you have in Lucha Underground. Usually with every Lucha Underground match, you can reasonably say, oh, well, this guy is clearly ahead of this guy or girl in the pecking order. Or then when you get those matches where there's two people on an equal playing field, things are that much more exciting. Whereas in WWE, where everybody's on an equal playing field, and it's like they're just going to trade wins. So, in Lucha Underground, you win and you move up the card. So there's something to be said for that too. I really think it's a well-booked promotion. I just hate the Sexy Star, the way that she's been booked, and as a result, the way Pentagon Jr. has been booked. And the wacky stuff in between the matches I'm completely over it now. It hasn't killed me to the point where I don't want to watch the show anymore, but it's just an aspect of the show I'm no longer interested in. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely fair. Yeah. Real quick, a little news tidbit, Lucha Underground. I want to go back to Ring of Honor. We're going to talk about Best of the World here, but a little tidbit in the Observer about Lucha Underground and their future. It says there's still nothing new past a lot of talent that work indies are frustrated that there has been no schedule released because this is the time you would start booking your calendar for August, September, and October. We mentioned this months ago that we said, hey, at some point these guys are going to go, hey, look, I need to, kind of.
No, did we mention that?
We did.
Did we not say that several months ago?
We did. The guys are probably not going to be okay with that.
Yeah,
yes.
Did we not talk about that? Did I not harp about that when I did that solo show that week? And were we not told that, well, this is not a wrestling promotion. This is a television show, and it's done differently here. And didn't we say that
your employees are wrestlers?
You're employing wrestlers. So you can call yourself a television show all you want, but we told you that this shit was going to happen and that these wrestlers who need to make a living and need to book themselves, we're going to start to be upset about this shit. But nobody listened, because everyone look, we like the show too, but just because you like it doesn't mean that we couldn't see this stuff coming. And that you don't have to blindly defend it just because you like it. Okay? You can't treat wrestlers like this because they have to book themselves out. Okay? It's June. It's the end of June. any competent wrestler, the level of wrestler that a company like Lucha Underground is going to use is booked out through September and October already. These guys aren't booked out a week before. They're booked out months ahead. We knew this was going to happen. We knew it, Rich.
We have a big name we're going to talk about a little bit. Big name from Lucha Underground that has decided to take matters into his own hands. I can't read too much into it, but he's at least opened doors that were previously closed. But anyway, yeah, August, September, October, he said, and they don't want to book dates that they'd have to pull out if Lucha Underground is taping those nights. So that's leaving a little bit of kind of intrigue of, hey, when are we going to tape? So we know like not to book those, because they don't want to go out and book, because they know, the first priority is going to be Lucha Underground or whatever. But yeah, we knew this was going to happen. But Dave does say we know that talent is now taking dates all the way through late August, though. So guys are told, hey, you can book through late August, but don't worry about the rest. So
and some of these guys, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. That no one listened to us before, so they're not going to, the Lucha Underground homers aren't going to listen to us now either. But the fact of the matter is, some of these guys are going to start taking matters in their own hands and say, fuck Lucha Underground, I got to go make a living.
Well, I mean, we'll jump to it. I mean, I was going to talk about this guy in the Bouncy Around Japan, but I guess this is the perfect time. I mean, Ricochet said, fuck it, I'm taking matters in my own hand, and I'm going back to Dragon Gate. And here's a guy who previously, closed the door to Dragon Gate, closed the door to New Japan, closed the door to traveling across, the sea, because he wanted to be close to his family and close to this, because he had a Lucha Underground gig. He knew, hey, I'm good on Lucha Underground. I'm going to be the top star, one of the top stars. I can still take some, American indie bookings when I want. Well, he appeared on the 621 show as a mystery partner, and he appears to be, it might not be a long-term thing, but at least he's there for a little bit. I mean, he's at least opened that door again, and that's a guy who, yeah, I mean, he's a guy who we've talked about the momentum that he lost, going to Lucha Underground, and a guy who could get booked pretty much in every promotion he would want if he said he was available, and it appears that he's, at least for the time being, made himself available. So.
And, Hernandez has made himself the Rick Rude of the Wednesday Night Wars.
Yeah, right.
By appearing on, he's another guy who showed up unexpectedly on Impact, because the Beatdown Clan is losing members left and right. Samoa Joe, of course, is now with WWE, and Loki quit TNA today. So the Beatdown Clan is sort of taking a beating themselves, but they did add Hernandez last night. And Hernandez appeared on both shows, Lucha Underground and TNA, a la Rick Rude, during the Monday Night Wars, where he appeared on Nitro and Raw on the same night. And I also believe, didn't he appear on ECW?
He was on, yes, he was on a one of the random syndicated ECW shows as well. Yeah, so he was actually on all three.
So Hernandez,
an impressive. So good luck on that, Hernandez.
Is the Rick Rude of the, but he's done with Lucha Underground, from what I understand.
He is, yeah. I don't
know if that was mutual or
that was planned. I believe that was planned, and that was going to happen regardless.
So we can't really take, chalk that up to guys being frustrated or whatnot, because that's wouldn't be fair, because it's not really the case. But there's another guy. Now, let me tell you something about Hernandez. He had a nice little run on Lucha Underground. A lot of people groaned and said, Hernandez, I'm going to sit through this guy.
I thought it was fine. I thought it was
His
good.
match with Prince Puma.
Really good.
Easily the best Hernandez singles match ever, correct? I mean, is that even in dispute?
I think, yeah. I mean, we're good stuff in LAX. There's probably some better LAX tags that I would say, but yeah, no, absolutely.
As far as may have been the best Hernandez match, period.
It's probably, you could probably make that argument.
So nice little run. I think it surprised some people. But it appears as though he will be back with. He is back. Well, at least he was, and I don't know if he's at the tapings as we speak. But I believe he would be. Why wouldn't he be? I mean, MVP doesn't have any partners left. It's going to be MVP and Kenny King. And that's about it.
Yeah, it's not much of a faction war if you don't have any factions.
Yeah. So there you go with that. But so that's your Wednesday Night Wars recap. I guess,
yes, we did everything except for I didn't watch Ring of Honor, but we saw it. We don't want it. We don't want the show to every single week be it. But hey, there's exciting stuff going on, so at least we got to talk about it, right? Best in the World, Ring of Honor Best in the World. We watched, we both now have seen the show, a little old now to talk about it, but as we always do, we always say nobody wants to hear us review a week old show, and then immediately we get tweets saying, yes, we do, yes, we do, yes, we do. So we're going to review.
It's only 5 days old, right?
Yeah, it's not bad. So there's worse. So anyway, overall meta thoughts about, or macro thoughts about Best in the World before we kind of go match by match.
Good show, not a great show, but a good show. I liked everything on it for the most part.
The first half was pretty not good.
We might disagree a little then, because I thought it was a good show all the way through, highly watchable. but the show didn't. It's not a show of the year contender or anything.
No, no.
Didn't have any matches of the year contenders in my opinion, but it had a lot of really good matches, or at least 2 really strong matches in my opinion. So I don't know. What were your overall thoughts?
I like I said, I did not enjoy the first half all that much. I thought it was kind of lackluster. It was really, well, here's the thing, that a lot of the stuff that they did, in the moment when I was watching it, it was like, because a lot of them were like DQ finishes, interferences, sort of like, it was very story driven that first half. But a lot of the stuff played out later in the second half and played out later on TV and later. I understood why it was kind of a means to an end for a lot of the stuff they did do. So to that respect, where, as a pure sit down, watch a pay-per-view and expect, an incredible set of matches or whatever, it wasn't that. But from a tell a story, get guys over, progress storylines, it was fine from that standpoint. So that's sort of where I have to put a little caveat when I said I didn't enjoy the first half. I didn't enjoy it from I'm sitting down and watching a wrestling pay-per-view and I sort of expect all good matches, to what we got, which was fine, but it was a lot of story stuff.
Okay, well, let's.
Is that fair?
Okay, yeah, I don't have any major issue with any of that, but let's go match by match and see what you didn't like.
All right, so I did not talk about the dark match. I don't think we had to break that down. I don't know.
Obviously, neither one of us.
If you were looking at a handheld, I don't know if someone had a handheld or a periscope of Cheeseburger and Romantic Dutch or whoever. I think it was a 4-way, but we don't have to talk about that. Anyway, the opener: Mark Briscoe versus Donovan Dijak. Is it Dijak? I can never pronounce his name. Dijak.
Yeah, double D.
All right. This was okay. I mean, I like Mark Briscoe's fun. Dijak, I don't really get it. I don't think he's very good, but it was all fine. It was. For what it was okay.
I liked it. I liked this match. I thought it was a good match. I thought Briscoe took one of the bumps of the year when Dijak dumped him over the top and basically just body slammed him out of the ring.
Yeah,
that was a great bump. The one thing about this match is a lot of people took issue with Dijak losing because he's hasn't lost yet, and what's the point of it's Mark Briscoe. It doesn't matter if Mark Briscoe wins or loses. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it never really occurred to me watching live that this was Dijak's first big loss and I think that's because I just don't think much of Dijak. So that aspect,
I wasn't really fine. Yeah, I really honestly didn't notice that until I went online later and people were like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "Oh yeah, is that his first loss?" Like I didn't know that. Like, yeah, I'm not following him intently, so yeah, I kind of
because I think the booking in Ring of Honor has been great lately, and for a lot of the same reasons that we just talked about with Lucha Underground. I think everyone on the Ring of Honor roster has a purpose, right down to Cheeseburger and Brutal Bob Evans. And it's like, I like stuff like that. I like knowing when a guy comes out that he has a reason for coming out, or there's a reason that this match is taking place, or, that's, and everyone on the Ring of Honor roster right now has a purpose and has themselves a little story. And, this though was one that apparently went over my head because it didn't even occur to me that this was Dijak's first big loss. And honestly, even after some people complained about it, and look, I can see that complaint. That's a perfectly valid complaint to say, well, look, maybe this guy shouldn't have lost this match. But it did. Look, I don't think Dijak, at least right now, he hasn't lit my world on fire, and I don't see anything in him. So it didn't really bother me that Briscoe won the match. And all I was concerned with here was that it was a hot little opener to get me going.
And it did that. It did that.
Exactly. And it delivered.
And Briscoe's perfect in that. He's found his role as that guy, which is fine.
No
he comes out, he screams, he does kung fu, he takes some big bumps, he flies a few times, and he's out and he's done.
And the crowd loves him, so he gets the crowd up. And it's like you make a good point. He's like the perfect opening match guy for that company right now.
The perhaps the worst second match guy in the company, BJ Whitmer and Adam Page. Against ACH and Matt Sydal. This did not much for me, and that's ACH and Sydal did as much as they could here, but man, it's really hard to drag something good out of Page and Whitmer, and this I really did not like this match at all.
I might be the only person who enjoyed this.
You might be, yes.
No one else liked it either.
Yeah, it was too much. It was too much. Let's slow these guys down because I'm the veteran guy. I hated it. And Page does nothing for me either, so that doesn't help.
I kind of like this ACH storyline, though. It's like this is kind of my point. Like, ACH and Page have this little issue. It's like everyone has an issue, and I like that. And ACH and Sydal, I think, are a fun team. And I think it's the right guy took the pin. Wait, I'm getting a text message.
Oh,
breaking news. Oh, all right. Sorry, I thought this was a wrestling text message, but it wasn't. It was a similar name to someone who sends me stuff sometimes.
Okay.
But this is not wrestling related. Apologies to the listeners.
Gee, I got all excited now.
Yeah.
Well, to read the text anyway.
Okay.
You don't have to.
All right,
really,
let's
but
see.
Please don't say who it's from, though. So.
Dallas Keuchel on fumes here, and Hinch is staying with him. So gross. It is a baseball text from a Yankee fan who's annoyed that they're losing to the Astros.
To Dallas Keuchel and the Astros. Okay.
So, hey, you want me to read
that was not interesting at all.
You were hoping it was from a lady, weren't you?
I was kind of hoping. Yeah, that was the least interesting text you could possibly receive.
Look,
yeah.
It's getting a little late in the Central Time Zone, and you were kind of hoping it was, someone on Tinder who I've
Dallas fucking Keuchel. Yeah,
you were hoping it was someone on Tinder who I've schooled with the Oxford comma, and but it is not. That's my new gimmick, man. I go on Tinder.
That's okay.
I look for girls who do not have proper usage of the Oxford comma in their little Tinder profile.
Mm-hmm.
I match with them, and if they match with me, I lecture them.
You lead a pretty terrible life
on the improper usage of the Oxford comma.
It's gonna work one of these times, though. You're gonna find your future wife that way. It's gonna be great.
And I will tell you, for people who think I'm kidding, check my Twitter feed.
Yeah, it's real. Because
I'm posting screenshots of this.
Does it ever go anywhere?
I am on a one-man crusade to spread the word of the Oxford comma. And
does it ever go? Does it ever go beyond that, or they all just kind of assume you're an idiot and weird and then leave?
Most of them quickly unmatch me.
Okay.
Some of them are just like, what is your deal, man? And some of them think it's funny, and then we.
Okay. Well, because that's what one of our Twitter followers, Hype Gotti, he's on there all the time. And he'll post screenshots where he'll ask girls about what do you think of this TNA news or something like that, and and they're pretty good. Like sometimes he gets a conversation where the people actually respond or whatever. It's a good little icebreaker.
Lay
it out there. Lay it out there. Yeah. What's the hell's the worst that can happen?
Look, right? Tinder is a cesspool. If you're not gonna have some fun with it, you know what I mean. So I am the Oxford comma police of Tinder. I've got it right in my profile too, that I am a big supporter of the Oxford comma, and I'm coming after you if you don't use it properly in your profile. I'm going to tell you that your profile is confusing because of the lack of the Oxford, and I'm going to break it down. So you were hoping I was getting a Tinder message or
maybe Lauren. Yeah, Lauren, Oxford comma Lauren.
Well, yeah, that's one of the screen. Yes, the lovely Lauren who.
Lauren looked like 17. What were you doing with that?
I don't know how old she was.
Lauren looked like a young.
It doesn't matter.
Lauren will look like a member of the Dollhouse.
Rich,
so that
I'm not matching these people for
I know
for
it
those
just had
purposes.
A bad
I'm matching these people to teach them how to use the Oxford comma. So their looks and their age are irrelevant in this case. Lauren she did not unmatch me yet. Believe it or not, she is 29 years old.
Whoa, no way. No.
Well, I don't know what to tell you, man. It says 29.
Jeez, her picture made her look like she was 17.
She has improper usage of the Oxford comma in her profile, which, by the way, she must have gotten self-conscious about because
she's deleted that part.
Her profile there's nothing in the profile anymore. It's now nothing. So she took it away after I explained to her what was wrong with it. But she has not unmatched me yet. She's still in there. She just hasn't responded though.
Okay.
So she's probably perplexed by my insanity. But this is what I do in the night, It gets boring and lonely out here in the middle of nowhere, Texas. So I harass women on I could be acting as a sexual predator on the
right.
Tinder.
There's way worse things you could do on Tinder
schooling them on the Oxford comma.
Right, you're actually doing a very good thing.
I'm doing a service here. Because I am a strong believer in the Oxford comma. But so the ACH Matt Sydal team.
Right.
I enjoy it as a team. What I would like to see though, since Sydal is one of the few guys on the roster who is spinning his wheels and not really doing much of anything, maybe a heel turn for Sydal.
Yeah, he needs something.
How about a Sydal ACH feud?
I'm down. Yeah, he needs something.
Right?
Just nothing is clicking with him. It's and he was a guy who I thought would really just take it to another level once he got back on the indies. But as people have said, he's not he's not 100% healthy. He's had some issues with his feet and his ankle, and I get that. But man, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little disappointed that we were finally getting him on the indies, finally getting him, without the chains of WWE, and it's really just kind of been just sort of there, and it's hard. I've had trouble connecting with a lot of his stuff, but
Do you remember the Matt Sydal heel turn at the end of the Ring of Honor run?
yes, I do.
One of the great things Gabe Sapolsky is good at is he understands that fans of his promotions are insider fans, quote unquote. And when the type of fans that are going to know when a guy signs with WWE or whatnot. So when guys are finishing up, he doesn't insult our intelligence, and he turns it into storylines. You end up with the Summer of Punk, for example, or you end up with Larry Sweeney with the gimmick of the super agent who's filtering the Ring of Honor talent to Stamford, Connecticut.
And also getting Brett Albright.
Right. And, the deal was Matt Sydal signed with WWE, and in the Ring of Honor universe, it was the doing of Larry Sweeney, super agent, who got him the gig. And Sydal went heel. Now, look, Larry Sweeney, the great Larry Sweeney, and Chris Hero carried most of the heavy lumber for that Sydal heel turn, but Sydal did a nice job as a heel during those last few months in Ring of Honor. And I think that a heel turn would do him well here. And I think Sydal and ACH could have some tremendous openers on Ring of Honor shows if they had a little feud with each other, because their styles obviously complement each other very well. So, but that's fantasy. Does that qualify as fantasy booking?
That's pseudo fan. Yeah, I won't go all the way with it, but yeah, it had some tints of it, but that's fine.
Yeah. All right. Well.
All right. Dalton Castle, Silas Young. I enjoyed this.
Thought it was good.
This is great. This is the nice, perfect. This is something that you get in this universe of a styles clash of a Silas Young versus a Dalton Castle. I mean, not in terms of like how they look, not in terms of the wrestling, but yeah, well worked. I think Castle's really pretty solid, and Silas Young is a guy I love as well. I think he's a really, really great worker. So yeah, this was right up my alley.
Castle can really work.
He can. It's for all the everybody kind of makes a big deal out of his gimmick and the joke and that sort of stuff. But when the bell rings, he can go, and that really does help him in that audience. Like, because if he went out there and he was like Grotto or whatever in TNA, who's got a fun gimmick, and once the bell rings, it's like, oh,
I tell you, I don't.
You don't get it. Yeah, I don't really get
Grotto
it either.
Does not connect with me. I just don't get Grotto.
People like it. So, and I've been told, because once I think on Twitter I put, and it was a lot of our UK fans and a lot of our European fans were quick to say, hey, look, it's one of those things that you kind of have to be there. You kind of have to get it. You have to sort of get his background to get, what he's all about. But I was exactly right. Where I was just like, yeah, I don't really get it. and I get it. It's fine. It's not me. I don't know his background. I don't care. I don't know where he came up from. But yeah, even on TNA, it's unique. The fans kind of root for him, and then the bell rings, and they're just like, yeah, why were we rooting for that guy? I don't really remember, but because it just dies. It's just dead once the bell rings. But Castle is not that way. Castle can keep you engaged throughout the whole thing. So
he can go in the ring for sure. He's really embraced this gimmick, and it's amazing to me how quickly he's sort of assumed this role and perfected it. I mean, it's like he's been doing this act for 15 years. He's really good.
He seems like a veteran, like a veteran of the indies. That like you would almost assume that he's just been doing this thing
forever. It's
right, and that's just like he goes from town to town, and everybody knows that that's Dalton Castle. One of the like almost like a Cole Cabana type, but he's not. He's unique and new and fresh. So
yeah, I mean, and he did a drastically different character in Chikara. With the Ashley Remington thing, and he's a really good worker. And I'll tell you, Silas Young was a guy who really had go away heat with me for a long time, and I will admit that he's growing on me.
Once you get it, that's how I honestly I was that way for a while too, and even going to AEW shows, I was like, ugh, Silas Young. Something happens and it clicks once or twice, and then you kind of get it, and then you're there. I don't know how to explain it, but people that are fans of him will sort of get it. It's sort of like if you laugh and realize that he's just like a drunk uncle. It's pretty good.
He's on Twitter now, and I really hope he's one of these guys who embraces
That's
Twitter.
all real. I think that's real. Yeah,
I want him to embrace Twitter, and I want him to go all the way with it, because he is going to get under all of the wrong skin with that gimmick on Twitter. He's already calling people twats on Twitter.
I'm sure he believes it. That's the best part.
He's saying things like, I can't wait to annoy all of you twats. And that there's certain segments of wrestling fandom that is not going to fly with. Even though, I mean, he's just...
What are you talking about, Joe? I don't
He's doing his gimmick. I mean,
right.
the last real man would call someone a twat. I mean,
Right. Just like the Devastation Corporation, the
right,
same thing
exactly.
where they call them broads and talk about that
And
sort
it's
of stuff because
funny
they're
how,
like, yeah.
isn't it interesting how certain people give that a
It
pass?
is weird how
That's
that
weird, isn't
major
it?
Chikara, yeah, that major Chikara act that calls people broads and talks about, just having sex with ring rats or whatever, doesn't get called out. But yeah, if a WWE performer did it, it would be a big fucking deal.
Right.
But
Even
a featured act in Chikara who stuck through the rebuild and the closure, they get a pass. But yeah, Dolph Ziggler would not.
and to be clear, even if that now look, if it was someone out of character saying those things, they should be called out on it, and rightfully so. But this is the Devastation Corporate. They're in character, and I don't think they should be called out for it. But here's the thing: you're absolutely right. If a WWE in character tweeted something like that, that would be the end of the fucking world for the Usual Suspects. They'd be all over it. They would not accept that. But no one says a peep about the Chikara act that does it. And look, we both agree they shouldn't, because
no, they're great. Yeah, they're fine.
That they should.
They're a mid '80s scummy, like roided up tag team, power and paint tag team. They should be talking about how they're, yeah.
Just like
that's absolutely
Silas
perfect, yeah.
Young, if he calls people twats in character on Twitter, that's his character, man. I don't have a problem with that either. So, but I'm telling you, that's not going to go well if he sticks with Twitter and does that stuff. And you're right, it's gonna point out a lot of hypocrisy, because I think you're dead on with that comparison, with that Chikara comparison.
Yeah, it is.
So
it is unique.
But some
yeah.
people look, some people are never going to call out Chikara, and we know why. And there's some people who, may or may not be, pulling some strings in Chikara too. You guys are just gonna have to wait for that. Speaking of which,
now when is that dropping, by the way?
I get this in quickly. I have not dropped the Chikara project. I'm still researching what I wasn't gonna.
We need a tell-all book. This needs to be a tell-all book at this point.
That's what I was just gonna say. I'm kicking around the idea of a book.
It's that long. Yeah. If it's gonna be that long, like, you're getting a lot of good stuff, so it might have to get to that point.
I don't want to. I didn't want to say that though, because I don't want to commit to it. I don't want people to hold me to that. But
now that people are holding it to you,
more than likely, I am still working on it. The idea's still out there, but I'm just trying to be low key about it now. I am still interviewing people. I'm still talking to people behind the scenes. I have people volunteering me information. But the thing is, I'm done sending out the jokey tweets and that, because that got it all off on the wrong foot. I am not doing. I want to make this clear. I am not doing a hit piece on Mike Quackenbush. That's not my intent. I've been accused of that by some people privately. I'm really approaching this from all angles. I've spoken to some tremendous people that are involved in Chikara now, were involved in Chikara in the past, who are on record and will be part of this, who had nothing but wonderful things to say about the company, about Mike Quackenbush, and all that stuff's going to get used. I really want to do a long form investigative, the type of, I hate the word journalism and I hate the word journalist, because I think both of those words are uppity, and I really don't want to go on a separate rant about that, but it's really the only word that's appropriate right now. I really want to do a long form journalistic piece on Chikara, and particularly on Mike Quackenbush, the likes of which you never see in wrestling for a million different reasons. Most of all because wrestling is still sort of in this kayfabe world where people just won't talk to you like that.
Mm-hmm.
People aren't open because they want to get booked. They don't want to get blacklisted. They want to make money.
Yeah, the bridges always have to be open.
Whereas,
it very rarely will guys go out in a blaze of glory for anything.
Or you can't get people to talk to you, and you can't get them to talk to you honestly, and it's hard to get people to talk to you on the record if they're going to say anything even remotely salacious, which is a problem I'm running into now. I have plenty of people throwing a lot of different things at me, negative things, but none of them want to be on the record. Well, a lot of that I can't use. I'm not out there just to smear people. I've got to have things double confirmed. I have to have sources willing to let me use their names. It's tricky. People aren't going to see what I'm putting together next week. They're not going to see it next month. They may not even see it next year. but I'm not going to stop, and I'm going to keep putting it together, and I'm going to do it right, and I'm going to do it as professional as possible. And I wanted to stop talking about it on Twitter and on message boards and stuff, because I don't want people were starting to get the impression that it's a joke. I don't want people to think it's a joke. It's going to be a serious piece. So I'm kind of laying low for a while so people forget about, that was a mistake early on. I'll admit that was a mistake. And it really has cost me the ability to talk to some people. I don't even know. Did I tell you about the person who basically threatened me?
No, I don't think so.
I'll have to text you that later.
Okay.
I was not directly threatened, but indirectly threatened by someone who, was like, "You're."
It wasn't the Lionheart fan, right? It was another. It wasn't him again.
It was someone who said, "Look, careful what you write, because you better not cost me my money." And it's like, well, here's the thing. What I'm going to write is precisely what people tell me. So if you got something good to say about Chikara or Mike Quackenbush or anything, then basically what I said to the guy was, you're the kind of person who needs to talk to me then. If you want this thing to be balanced, I need people like you to talk to me. I want to make it balanced, but I can't make it balanced if all I'm getting is negative. Just
exactly right.
So it's like, I can only write what people are willing to tell me. And when I made the call to talk to former and current Chikara talent, I really meant everybody. I didn't just mean the people who felt like they were screwed over by Mike Quackenbush or whatever. When there's elements of this, there's certain things that I feel. Well, I'm not gonna get into all that, but it's. I've had people start to talk to me and then disappear. I got the sense that maybe certain people picked up on what I was doing, and they sort of sent, certain people to talk, which is fine. I'll talk to anyone. And I have had great conversations with people, both who are positive on Chikara and negative on Chikara. And I've learned a lot of things. And the piece is going to be balanced, or as balanced as it can be. But if anyone's listening to this who wants to contribute and feels like they have, email me. Use our contact page and get in touch with me. I'm still talking to people. I'm still accepting email. I'm still talking to people on Skype and doing my due diligence and having wonderful conversations with people on both sides of the fence. It's not going to be a hit piece, but it's not going to be a fucking puff piece either. I'm not going to waste my time. If all I got was, everybody kissing Chikara's ass or kissing Mike Quackenbush's ass, I'd abandon this and I wouldn't write it. Who wants to read that? I'm not here to do PR for Chikara.
Well, there's plenty of other blogs. Yeah, there's plenty of other blogs without that.
Yeah. I'm not going to be that. I'm not going to, be Chikara's PR piece. On the flip side, if all I got was negative, I'm not going to write that either.
Exactly. Yeah, that doesn't look fair either. That looks like we're just going out of our way to
bury the guy. But at the same time, it's not my fault if there's skeletons in Chikara's closet. This is very ambitious, and I also recognize that this can burn every bridge I've ever made. And the very few bridges that I have in wrestling, this can burn them all, because no one has the guts to write something like this when it comes to wrestling. You see it in sports, you see it in politics, you see it in entertainment, you see it in music, you see it in every other walk of life, but no one has the guts to write something like this with wrestling. The closest we've come is Irv Mushnick in the 80s and 90s, who he did his WWE pieces, but yeah. You really don't see anything like this, especially at the indie level, or no one writes stuff like that. Number one,
no, you get like a Ring of Hell or whatever. You get some of those things here and there, but yeah, it's very rare.
It's a double murder suicide for people to write anything investigative about wrestling, and that's the sad thing. And it doesn't have to be like that. Okay, we can be, it's up to us, the people on the outside. If we want to see good quality writing, I hate the word journalism and I hate the word journalist. If you want to see good quality, because only uppity people use that word, and that's a rant for another day. Only self-important people, I'm a journalist. You're a writer. Take it easy. But it's up to us as writers to improve the state of wrestling writing. It doesn't have to be people copy and pasting the Observer. It doesn't have to be people. It doesn't have to be people just doing free PR for promotions. We can write long-form, balanced pieces about, and the subjects can be on wrestling. So why don't we see that? I'm going to tell you why we don't see that. People are afraid to do it. That's number one. No one has the guts to do it. And look, if anyone has the guts, it's me. I don't care. I'll do it. But the bigger obstacle than that is the access. You can't get the access. In any other walk of life, you can get people to talk to you. In wrestling, it's still that world of kayfabe. It's still that world of protecting the business. It's still that world of people looking out, for their own bookings and whatnot, especially at the indie level. And
Yeah.
it's like the access is the bigger hurdle than having the guts. The guts is a big hurdle too, because I genuinely don't believe a lot of people have the guts to do it. A lot of people are afraid to burn those bridges. I'm really not. We're not a news site, Rich. You know what I mean? Every now and then we get some news and we'll pass it along. That's fine. But I know I feel this way, and I know you feel this way too. You can be perfectly content and you can live with it if we never broke a news story ever again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You would have no problem with that.
No problem.
So,
yeah, there's enough places you can do that, and enough people that do it well,
better than us,
and would prefer to do it and like to do
us.
it. I don't enjoy it. I hate it, actually.
So it's like, from that perspective, I'm not worried about burning, those bridges. And there's, if this thing, let's face it, if I ever do write this thing and it does come out, and even if it is balanced, no one's going to focus on the positive. Everyone in the wrestling business is going to focus on the negative. Everyone's going to think I was just out to bury the guy. And there's going to be a lot of people who end up hating my guts, and by proxy your guts, and by proxy everybody, the site's guts. And I'm prepared for that. And I think you're okay with that, because I think it's wrestling writing can be better. Okay?
Yeah.
We can look at things from all angles. Why can every other form of entertainment and every other walk of life be subject to this, but not wrestling? That's bullshit. Why can't we write about wrestling honestly? And why can't we dig in? And honestly, Chikara is a very interesting subject for something like this. Because of the way they present themselves and a lot of things that have gone on in that company, and sort of the dual image of Mike Quackenbush, where people who know him either love him and think the world of him, or hate his fucking guts. And look, you can say that about a lot of people in wrestling, but the dichotomy with him is very strong. And I think it would make for a very interesting long form piece to write about that dichotomy. Why do some people love this guy, who's a genius, by the way? I'm convinced that Mike Quackenbush is a genius.
Oh, absolutely.
That word gets thrown around. That man is a genius. And I've never been more convinced that he's a genius than after talking to people on both sides of the fence.
Seeing
guy is a fucking master. First of all, he's a genius in many ways. He's I'll stop now. I should save some of this.
I was gonna say, this all sounds like good stuff.
But I mean, I do believe the guy's a genius. So from that perspective, and the perspective of the dichotomy of how people feel about him, he is there aren't many people to me that would be more interesting to write about, and not many promotions that would be more interesting to write about than Chikara. So that's why I've chosen them. And
yeah, absolutely.
And it will be fair. And I'll tell you, I will reach out to him at some point. Of course, I'm going to reach out to him. Every single person has told me that there's no chance he'll ever talk to me, but he deserves the opportunity, and I will reach out to him. And there are some other people I'm going to reach out to who are going to ignore me too. I think you know who I'm talking about, who need to be at least contacted. And they're not going to talk to me either, but they'll be contacted, and it'll be noted that they were contacted, and people will think what they want to think of it. I'm really not so concerned what people inside wrestling are going to think of this, because they're all going to hate it, because no one is used to this kind of writing in wrestling.
Exactly.
I'm more concerned with what the readers think of it, and what people who come to the site think of it. And that's my chief concern. And I want to make sure I dot all my I's, cross all my T's, do a professional job, contact all the people I need to contact, do all my research, have all my ducks in a row, and I'm able to support every single thing that I write. That's what's most important to me. Not the fact that, maybe some wrestler who I was friendly with doesn't want to be friends with me anymore, or a promoter who, does business with Chikara can't talk to me, has to disassociate themselves with me because of guilt, bias. Look, I'm not concerned about that, and I can't be concerned about those things. If we really want to take this website to the next level and do some out of the box things with this website and really differentiate ourselves from everything else that's going on out there, I think it's important that we at least try to do some projects like this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I didn't intend for this to go like 8 minutes or whatever it was.
Oh, no, you're fine. I think it went way longer than 8 minutes, but that's fine. No, I absolutely agree. And that's been one of the directives of the site. And a lot of stuff that we've been doing is that, yeah, we don't ever want to be a news site that just churns out an article because something happened. And here's just our quick response about, that's never been what we did. And we've wanted to do stuff that is, yeah, I know what you're saying about using the word journalist or whatever, but getting interviews, getting other opinions, not just putting out, because you'll get a lot of columns out there where somebody says, hey, here's something that annoyed me. Now here, let me talk about it for, 8 paragraphs or whatever, where there's good stuff in that too. And I think you can absolutely do that. But I think there's also stuff where, one of the best pieces that we had recently, one that I was the most proud of, was Brandon Howard's social media one. Because he basically reached out to a few wrestling promoters. He asked me if I could reach out to a few as well. And we reached out to, and we started getting a flood of responses from all these guys saying, hey, yeah, we'll talk, we'll help out. We'll do whatever you need. These independent promoters that were way open to being quoted, being talked about, giving us numbers, doing this sort of stuff. And it was refreshing to these guys because it was like, oh, wow, yeah, okay. Like it can actually be like it can be that discourse where, we interview people and we try to get, and that's fine. It was great. And we had, when somebody else mentioned to me, the other day, hey, I'd like to do a story on, X or whatever. Who can I talk to? And we gave them a bunch of indie promoters and said, contact these guys, they're open to talk, and that's good. That's what needs to happen because there's none of that in between. Like you said, there's either, Joe, you hate this, so you're going to write a column about this, or you like this, so you're going to write 8 paragraphs about this, or let's churn out whatever the Observer had and we'll copy and paste every single paragraph, and that'll be our thing.
There's no reason there can't be higher level writing in the wrestling world. And look, I don't know if we're the right people to do it. Maybe we're not, but I'm going to try. And,
might as well give it a whirl.
It's there's just so much shit when it comes to wrestling writing, and we all know that. That's not, and I just think we can do better. And, step one is just not being scared, and no matter who emails me and threatens me and tells me that I'm fucking with their money, what's he going to do?
Whoever gives you free show links or whatever, that might be done, but you know what I mean? Like,
is he going to come knock on my door and beat me up? I mean, you can't be, it's, if people are mad at me, they'll be mad at me, but that's okay. As long as people who read it feel like, wow, no one's writing this kind of stuff, because,
exactly,
even Meltzer doesn't approach things that way, and he shouldn't. That's not what he does. The problem is no one does this. That's
right. Nobody fills that void either. Yeah.
It's not my problem that Dave doesn't do it, or this guy doesn't do it, or that guy. It's my problem is no one is doing it. Where is, the next level writing coming from in wrestling? It's just not out there. But poor Joe Gagne.
So now War Machine. That was Dalton Castle, Silas Young, our long form review of that match. War Machine, Hanson and Ray Rowe defeated CNC Wrestle Factor, Curious Coleman and Cedric Alexander. This again was a very quick match, only about 3 minutes, but the big point here was the breakup of CNC Wrestle Factory and Cedric Alexander. Did not get tagged in, sort of hinted that he was going to turn on him, Caprice, but then just decided to leave the ring. But as we found out later, there'd be more to that. But
they just
any thoughts on this guy?
This was just to advance a story. I don't have a problem with this.
And this is what I mentioned. When I mentioned where you sit down and you watch and you have this grandiose idea of these awesome matches or whatever. And this wasn't one of those, but it worked for a storyline. It did what it had to do.
It cemented the Cedric Alexander turn, and it was an ever so brief reunion of CNC Wrestle Factory, and I'm sure he'll have some kind of short feud with Tadarius Thomas, right? You would think, as part of the build of Cedric. It looks like there's big things to come for him, right? I mean, it seems that way to me, and I'm okay with that. And this was just to advance a story, so it served its purpose. I had no problem with this. Not every match on the card has to be, 4.5
Agreed. Yeah. Right. I absolutely, I 100% agree. And that's why I said, where I'm a little disappointed in that respect, that I thought it was going to be, and it doesn't have to be, and it was fine. But Ring of Honor World Title #1 contendership match. This was a bit of a surprise here. Roderick Strong defeating Michael Elgin and Moose. I kind of assumed Moose. I think a lot of people thought Moose was going to win this one. He did not, though. Roderick Strong won. But again, it at the time, it was like, oh, man, that's kind of weird that Roderick Strong won. Not that I have a problem with Roderick Strong winning, but then when you saw what happened post-match, which I thought was the big story of this match, is that Cedric Alexander came out, attacked Moose, attacked Stokely Hathaway, and sided with Veda Scott. So Veda Scott sort of moves to Cedric Alexander, and that's her next kind of project. And then Moose now in that respect, can kind of leave Veda Scott and leave sort of the heel ranks and go to the babyface and then take his next step up. So you understand, he loses immediately and you go, oh man, that's really weird that he loses, but then you see immediately afterwards, okay, it makes sense. And that's, building him for that next step now is him, getting to that point where he gets the #1 contendership again and then, gets a title match. But it doesn't have to happen overnight. It can happen, with a little bit of time. But perfectly fine booking, perfectly okay with everything. And I thought it was a good match as well.
Yeah, the Cedric Alexander Moose stuff is fine. I mean, Cedric Alexander, was the guy to beat him, and then, then they did this. So, yeah, I did. Look, I really like this match. I thought it was arguably the best match on the show, actually.
I thought it was the best on the show as well. Well, no, I'll reel that in
Either
a little bit.
Either that or the main event, one or the other.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But, I thought all three guys were really good in the match, and I like what they're doing with both Moose and Cedric Alexander. So again, this was, for me at least, this show, just every single match, every single segment on the show worked for me. And this was another one. This was a really strong match with more good booking. So I enjoyed it.
6-man tag match here was the Bullet Club, AJ Styles and the Bucks, defeating the Kingdom, Adam Cole, Matt Taven, and Michael Bennett.
We kind of talked about it already, right?
We did a little bit. Meltzer went 4 1/4.
He's nuts. But a lot of people did, honestly.
No, people get it. I get why they do it. It's just not my. I just and that's one of those things that I can't really get mad at you if you said, "Oh, so I enjoyed the hell out of this," because I feel like I would have, and I should have, and I would, in previous times would have enjoyed it. But these days they just kind of all blend together now. It didn't do much for me.
It wasn't bad, but it didn't connect with me at all. The problem is they've had such better. The Bucks and AJ have had matches that blew this one away. I think that was the problem. This one could not live up to the other matches they've had of this type, of this, these like spot fest plunder matches that they had. It's like they've done better. And look no further than this week's Ring of Honor TV, where they had one that blew this one to smithereens.
Mm-hmm. Even there was the team Ring of Honor Bullet Club one. The ROH All Stars was the bullet. That was one that. Whatever,
that was
Global
like 5
Wars,
on 5
or whatever. Yeah, that was another one of those good, like unbelievable one of those. But yeah, you see better from them. So when you get one like this, it was hard for me to really get.
Admittedly, Taven and Bennett just
they add some negative vibes for me too.
I don't know, man.
I'd be okay if they just never ever wrestled again.
Maria too. Everyone's afraid to say it. I've had enough of her too. I mean, yeah, she's quote unquote good in her role. I get it, but I don't need it. I'm tired of it.
It's been the same thing now.
I've had enough.
I'm with you.
She's not fucking Marilyn Monroe. I mean, the idea that all these men are just mystified by Maria. She's an attractive woman, okay? I get it, but it's like, I don't know. It's the same shit every match. I don't know. I've had enough. The Kingdom could just go away. Adam Cole could just separate himself from them, and the rest of them.
It's really dragging him down. Yeah.
And now they're ruining my New Japan shows with the Kingdom.
You can't get away from them. Yeah, just go to PWS. Like, go to Pro Wrestling Syndicate. Go away. Just leave me alone. Go to Global Force at some point and just do that. But anyway,
Maria. I mean, perfectly. You know, she's a very attractive woman.
I don't think every man should be like passing out at her mere presence, but
she's no Danielle Harris, Rich.
I don't even know who that is.
Google is your friend.
Who's Danielle Harris? All right, let's see. How do I spell Daniel?
You're gonna do this right now, huh?
Yeah.
Danielle Harris, Rich, is maybe a woman who was built in a laboratory for Joe Lanza. She is a known as a horror movie actress predominantly. She was in the Halloween remakes as a child, but now she's all grown up, Rich. And
she has absolutely grown up.
She's right up the Joe Lanza alley.
The tattoo ruins it, but it enhanced it for you.
No, it doesn't. I don't like tattoos on women, but I can overlook it in the case of Danielle Harris.
Really mad. She has tattoos, but not. Look at this woman's here, Michelle. You'll see. Look at that. See it? On the hip. All right. Michelle doesn't care, so.
Yeah, well.
You're okay, Joe.
Her opinion wasn't.
No one's ever going to see that.
Wasn't going to sway me anyway, Rich. But yeah, so.
But otherwise, yes, the whole it's impressive.
She was built in a laboratory specifically for me. I mean, I used to tell
5-tool. That's a 5-tool Joe Lanza. If you were a scout,
5-tool Joe Lanza. I told an ex-girlfriend once, which probably explains why she's an ex. I said, if I have an opportunity to, to meet the lovely Danielle Harris, and if it goes anywhere, I'm gonna kill you and bury you in the backyard.
Well, I would have just
And
said you could ask her to like let you have, but okay.
well, yeah, yeah, I
I
guess you
mean,
have to go to
I think
drastic
there are easier
measures,
ways
but
to. Yeah, you took
you have
that
to
from
threaten
0 to 10
murder.
real quick.
But obviously I was being facetious, so don't plan on murdering anybody. But yeah, so yeah, Maria's no Danielle Harris, that's for sure.
No.
That's my point here. I guess I went a little deep with the reference, but I wasn't really thinking about it. I'm not. There's probably a lot of people Googling right now who are listening to this because admittedly, this is not a very famous person, Danielle Harris. I'm sure you've seen her in things though. You just don't realize.
Yeah, she looks familiar now that I saw her.
So
The name doesn't do much, but
no.
all right, Joe Gagnon, we're sorry. ROH World Tag Team Title no DQ match. It was the Addiction, Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian defeating Red Dragon, retaining their titles. The Addiction as well. This I don't know why this didn't do anything for me.
I
wanted it to. It just never. I don't know.
I've often said that the worst Red Dragon matches of all time were against the Kingdom. This is now the worst Red Dragon match I've ever seen.
Yeah, what was this? What happened here?
It stunk. I mean, it's just this no.
Why? I don't know why.
It was this no DQ garbage. This was my least favorite match on the show, if I'm being completely honest. And if you know how much I
don't think you're wrong. Yeah, I mean, really,
how much I love Red Dragon.
I mean, other than
War
War Machine CNC, but that worked from a.
That was just an angle more than anything else.
Yeah, so I don't want to really count that as a match.
And
anything
honestly,
that went over 5 minutes.
I enjoyed that more than I enjoyed this match.
Yeah, this was just bizarre.
It just wasn't good. It was just that no TQ junk that I can't stand, and guys swinging chairs at each other, and it's like I was over this style of match in like 1998. You know what I mean? I really don't need to see this kind of match anymore, and I really don't want to see Red Dragon in this kind of match. I really would have preferred if these two teams just got in the ring and had themselves an old school tag team match. You know what I mean? I don't need the no DQ stuff. And I know that they're bitter rivals and all that. And, Rich, one thing I've discovered about myself over the last year or so is that I'm just not a big stipulation guy.
Yeah, you don't seem to like any match that has.
And I really didn't. There's not a lot of wrestling stipulations that, that really work for me. I don't know. I'm not a stipulation guy. I rather just see guys have matches. I don't know. This didn't work for me at all.
All right, a match that worked for me and I believe worked for you as well. ROH World Title, ROH World Television Title. On the line here, Jay Lethal, the TV champion, defeating Jay Briscoe, the world champion, to win both titles. A little under 30 minutes here. I thought this was awesome. I thought this was everything that I look for in kind of a big time main event. A great story, two protected guys, two guys that had just won a lot of their matches recently. Two guys that are good characters, guys that weren't, they didn't have big brawls before. You really anticipated seeing them finally get in the ring together. And then the match itself was I just thought perfect. It was, they didn't go insane with tons of moves and tons of kickouts, but they didn't go too slow with so many headlocks or whatever. I just thought when it was over, it was like such a breeze. It was like 27 minutes was over so quick. And this is one that I've now watched, 2 or 3 times in a row because it was one of those where it was done. And I said, I wouldn't mind going back and watching that one again. And I did. I really enjoyed it. And I think the part that I loved the most was at the end where, Lethal hits his moves or whatever, hits his finisher, goes to the pin, Briscoe kicks out. And instead of just flash, doing a ton, and not that I hate that style sometimes, I think it works sometimes, but instead of doing thousands of finishers to each other for the next, 10 minutes or whatever, Lethal just goes, okay, does his finisher again, or does the J Driller, does his finisher again, and then pins him, and then it's over. And I don't think Jay Briscoe looked any worse for it because he kicked out the first time. But then Jay Lethal doesn't, those finishers are still protected because they didn't have to hit each other 12 times with them. So I thought it was perfect in that respect. Yeah, I really, really, really enjoyed this match. I would go 4.5 here, easy for that.
I think I'm a little lower than that, but I really thought it was a pretty great match. A notch below match of the year level. The one thing about the match is the build, which we've talked about, was tremendous. The build all the way through for the match was great. The promo video for the match was tremendous. And then what I really loved about the match was they didn't fall back on the old wrestling trope of the heel having to cheat to win the match. He won it clean in the middle. And, that's okay. And it's it would have been, they could have taken the cheap way out and had Lethal cheat to win or or win in some cheap manner, and they didn't do that, and I think that gets his title run off to a much better start than if there was some shenanigans with Truth Martini or Dijak or some kind of distraction finish. There was just one minor spot where he gave Briscoe a low blow at one point while Martini was up on the apron. But they established very early in the match when Lethal was annoyed that Dijak had interfered early on, and Lethal, the story was he was annoyed. He didn't want to win that way, it seemed like.
Right. He wanted to prove himself. Yeah, this was okay. My parents are here.
Yes.
This is a big moment. I want to win this thing on my own merit. And that's perfect.
Lethal is this obsessed maniac who was dead set on proving that he really was the best, and that this title meant that his TV title meant that he was the best, and that he was obsessed with proving that he was just better than Jay Briscoe. And he proved it. And that's not traditional pro wrestling storytelling for the heel to ultimately show that he was right. And I'm sure Jim Ross didn't like this finish. But, of course,
I'm guessing he didn't watch, or he complained about the lighting
literally
at some
and
point.
figuratively. Yeah. I'm using him as sort of a surrogate to people who think that way. You know what I mean?
Right. The older, if they're not cheating, they're not heels.
Yeah. And it's like, but this worked just fine. You can be a heel by just being an asshole. Your actions can make you a heel. Your attitude can make you a heel. Not because you have, a roll of quarters hidden in your tights, because this is 1982. It doesn't have to be that way. And that really put the match over the top for me. The work was good. Everything about the match was fine, but the fact that he won clean, and that his cronies weren't involved in the finish, that put it over the top. Great match, great story, great emotion, and now we'll see how they follow it up. I'm interested and I'm curious to see where they go from here. And the win really meant something because Jay Briscoe hasn't lost in forever.
Exactly right. So when you don't have guys trade wins and losses every fucking week or brawl with each other all the time, it means something when a win or a loss
beat a guy
happens.
clean who hasn't lost in forever.
Right. Even though it's just fake, Joe. So I don't know why we care, and wins and losses don't matter. I mean, come on, it's fake, but yeah.
It's sad that people look at it that way, but
it's pretty fun that
what if they've been
look what happens
by the biggest company in the world, though. So
exactly. Well, no, I agree, but it's just fun to see. Like here's an example of it. When you really make it count, when you make that loss count, it's a big deal, and that guy's ready to go now. Lethal is a made man. Like it happens. I mean it should be Pro Wrestling 101, but unfortunately the other side is now what people assume.
Yeah, well, it's people who grew up with that and they don't know any different, or it's people who on the other side of the fence who are just stuck in the past and think things need to be a certain way and can never evolve. But this was look. We were excited about this match coming in because the storytelling was so good, and the match delivered and the finish delivered. I didn't think Lethal was going to win.
I didn't really. I really didn't. People were sort of predicting both ways. I really thought they were going to find some way that Briscoe was going to win and then maybe have a rematch at some point and Lethal would win. But no, they just straight up did it. And like I said, it wasn't done in a, like you said, not a cheating manner. They didn't have to trade 20 finishers. Like Lethal won pretty definitively. And that's good. That's how it should be, is that now okay, this guy's a real deal. I need to pay attention to this guy.
Isn't it great when you're 50-50 on a match and then they give you a good finish?
Right. And then I was done and I went, that was good. Like I said, it was over and I said, I'm going to go watch that again. I didn't feel it was perfect. It was so perfect.
Isn't that great? And you're watching a match,
nice.
You really don't have a good feel for who's going to win. And
right. You actually care, you're going to watch the whole thing because you want to be able to be there and witness it when the fall happens and the guy wins. And
and either finish would surprise you to some extent. And you really don't want to see either guy lose. You know what I mean? It was that kind of match. And it's the kind of match where, and then they give you a clean finish, and man, you're all juiced up, you're excited, you're like, this is why I watch. This is why I watch wrestling, because this is when wrestling's great. It was one of those kind of matches where you're done with the show, and you take your little remote control, and you turn the TV off, or you close the lid to your laptop, whatever the case may be. You turn off your little Flips app, okay, and you have a smile on your face. You know what I mean? It leaves you with a smile on your face because you just watched something that was satisfying. That's all we want. We want to be entertained. and we want it to be satisfying. That show was entertaining, that match was entertaining, and the show was satisfying, and the match was satisfying. That's all you can ask for, man. If you give me a show like that every time out, this is why this is my favorite form of entertainment, right there. This is why we sit through the shit for moments like that and matches like that, where they satisfy you with good storytelling and they give you a good payoff with a clean finish. Doesn't fucking matter who the heel. Give us a clean finish. That's what we want, man. So yeah, good stuff. Definitely good stuff. No complaints from me.
All right, so that was best in the world. Real quick, we'll bring it to a little. We're going to talk a little Japan here in a little bit, but I want to talk a little bit more American stuff. We don't have a ton of WWE stuff, but I wanted to get these two little nuggets out of the way. The WWE in Japan show.
Quickly before that, WWE interested in Jay Lethal now. What do you make of that?
That's interesting. Yeah,
you can't blame them for being interested in Jay Lethal.
No, I mean you should be.
Definitely raised his stock over the last year for sure.
Yeah, that's it. From his standpoint, though, I wonder. I don't know.
What would you do if you were him?
Oh, that's tough. It really is. I mean, with the current landscape of NXT and what's going on there, I mean, it's hard to say that you know, because in 5 years ago, I would say, oh God, no. I mean, are you kidding? You're out of your mind, you know. But he's a guy who doesn't take a whole lot of other. I don't know what does he do in his other. Because he doesn't take a whole lot of bookings all across the country or whatever. He's not sort of that guy. He's never been that guy.
Yeah, you don't really see him in a ton of other places. That's true.
So that's where I'm kind of interested because some of these guys, you know, they might make more money on the indie scene. Like, you know, he could realistically say, hey, no, I make as much money here. But I wonder if he might just be kind of cool with where he's at, you know?
Interesting thing about WWE pursuing these indie stars for their NXT touring brand. The interesting thing about this is while it's probably a very exciting idea for a lot of these guys, a byproduct that might end up coming out of this eventually is the idea that, you know, they're not really signing these guys with an eye on, with the same idea in mind. In other words,
you're not main eventing WrestleMania.
Right.
You're not being signed because you're a potential main eventer for WrestleMania.
WWE wants you because they need people to fill up 3,000 seat buildings. They don't necessarily want you. You want to go there because you have designs on being a millionaire someday. And it's like, that's not necessarily what the plans are for all these guys. They really just want you so you can headline these NXT shows or, you know, provide solid work on these NXT shows. And you know, that's what's weird. You kind of have to weigh that now. And from what I understand, these NXT guys aren't making a ton of money. And we just saw with Kevin Owens, he signed a new main roster. They have main roster contracts and the NXT contracts.
Right. And he was in quite a hurry to sign the main roster one. So
right.
That tells you all you need to know about that.
So it might not be as easy of a decision as people might think. Because typically it would be, well, you know, a WWE deal is a no-brainer. But this isn't a WWE deal. It's an NXT deal.
Mm-hmm.
An NXT level WWE deal. So I don't know. If I'm Lethal, I don't know if I'd jump at that right now.
Well, and the thing with Lethal too, and that's why I sort of mentioned it, is he's a guy who's been through the TNA run. You know, he did that. He went to the, you know, quote, one of the quote major leagues or whatever, and did that for a while. I wonder if at his age, you know, he's like, whatever. You know, I've been there. I've kind of done it. I haven't done that particular company, but you know, whatever. You know, he sort of strikes me as a guy who, because there's some guys that still think, you know, and absolutely so, they should think that, you know, 20, you know, younger guys probably think, hey, you know, this is my first time here, my first exposure with WWE. I should try something. I should, you know, let me give this a shot. Let me see if I can spark it. Jay Lethal might just kind of be like, been there, done that. I'm good. Where my spot? You know, I just got here. I got to the, you know, the pinnacle of Ring of Honor because, you know, he trains people and does that sort of stuff. I don't know what he does in his other. I don't know if he has another job or something like that he does full time, or if he's just strictly does Ring of Honor. But yeah, I can see at his age and everything he's been through is, whatever. You know, I'm good where I'm at.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I think he understands that, the ceiling isn't what it used to be.
Well, I mean,
which is okay.
Again,
I don't think that's a bad thing. Yeah.
I mean, we are seeing more opportunities for indie guys to eventually go to the main roster. My point is, they're not signing guys with that in mind, though. I mean, there's always the chance where you can say to yourself, though, I want to go and then prove myself, and then I won't be able to be denied, and they'll have to put me on the main roster. But right now, they're just filling up that NXT roster because they want to call people up, and they want people who are going to be able to draw indie fans. I mean, that's the whole idea behind this. But you know, I guess it's a gamble. Do you go? He's as hot as he's ever been, right now.
Oh, absolutely, certainly.
So is this the time to gamble? and go to NXT and,
Yeah, give it one last shot. Yeah, whatever
and
you can do.
move to
Yeah, I don't know.
Florida and everything else and, live in that fucking performance center. You know what I mean? You got to weigh all those things. I don't know. So if I were him, I'm not so sure I'd be jumping at that opportunity right now. I think I might ride this out. It's just amazing that at this point, these are a reasonable option is to not sign with WWE.
Yeah, to stick with Ring of Honor. Yeah. Unbelievable. Yeah, it's really yeah, it is. Oh, he's I was training thinking he's in Clear. I thought he was in Florida. Yeah, he is.
Also, he lives in Florida already.
His Clearwater, Florida. I have no recollection of. I don't know any. Let's see, Clearwater, Florida to Winter Park, Florida. That's where all the NXT stuff. That is 2 hours. Okay.
Yeah.
His training school is in Clearwater. So.
Yeah. So
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. My thought with that is he'd probably just say thanks but no thanks, but I don't know, it's hard to say. You never know what this is the big, everybody sort of has that dream or whatever of being in WWE, being a big part of it, so I get how they would always
done a good job of making NXT appear to be the hot place to be.
Exactly. They've done that as well.
They've done a good job and making it seem like, look, if you come here and get over, there's opportunities for you on the main roster. The problem now is the more and more that it becomes sort of like this third brand, is they're always going to have to keep it strong for touring purposes, and there could be ulterior motives to signing guys. But with that said, if you get over, you get over. So I don't know. It all comes down to whether some of these guys want to gamble.
Well, this is a pretty good segue because the guy I was going to talk about is potentially on his way out, and that is Dolph Ziggler. There's a lot of rumors about him, questions about his contract status and all that, and that's been mentioned in observers and different stuff like that. But what we do know right now is as Dolph Ziggler's contract expires in a few months, and according to Dave and in the Observer here, there are rumors that he's at least considering what decision to make regarding his future, whether he's going to stick with WWE or not, go do something else, go do, stand-up comedy full-time, which Dave mentions that he didn't get very glowing reviews, so that probably will just remain a hobby for right now, which I could assume. But other stuff that was an interesting tidbit here is that there's interest in him from both New Japan and Lucha Underground. And he also mentions, too, that, TNA would also do anything they can to get him. And, of course, that'd be a smart thing. But the biggest nuggets there that I wanted to talk about were New Japan and Lucha Underground and Dolph Ziggler. And there was some questions of people saying, oh, hey, would he fit into these? I'm of the mindset that's a guy who's going to fit anywhere he goes. I think he's a great worker, so I think he's going to find a way no matter where.
I've used this phrase on other guys who have been free agents. And, We've heard people, say the same things about when Samoa Joe left TNA and some other people. The fact of the matter is, if Dolph Ziggler allows his contract to run out and becomes a free agent, I'm going to say the same thing I said about Samoa Joe. Every promoter in the world will be lined up around the fucking block to get this guy to work for them. And if you don't think that's the case, you are lost. You don't have a clue. You're lost. And, I said that before the Observer came out. I had people disagreeing with me. The Observer comes out, and every promotion in the world is lining up around the block to take a crack at Dolph Ziggler. You're nuts. Why wouldn't you want to sign this guy? What promotion in the world would he not add something positive? Give me a break. If he sees this through and leaves, he'll be able to call his shot and work wherever the fuck he wants.
Yeah, he'll have like Samoa Joe had, where he has every single contract in front of him and says, okay, yeah, and this is the one.
Yeah, it's amazing to me the hoops that some people will jump through to discredit some of these guys who are so blatantly talented. That guy is so immensely talented. It's like people focus on just the dumbest shit. It's like, well, I don't like him because he screams in his promos, or, I don't like him because he takes exaggerated bumps sometimes, and I don't like it. Look, none of that stuff at the end of the day really.
Nobody cares. Yeah.
Look, the guy's incredibly talented, and it's clear that he's driven. He's been frustrated with his spot in the company he's in for the last 5 years. He clearly has something to prove. Wherever he goes, he's going to bust his ass and work hard because he's going to want to stick it to WWE, because you get the sense that he doesn't feel like he's treated fairly. he's a guy who's obviously very confident and thinks the world of himself, and he's going to want to do well. Why would you not want to sign a guy like that? He's going to be motivated. He's a guy who, if you're the kind of promotion where, you know, match quality matters, if you're Lucha Underground or you're New Japan or you're a place like that where you don't want your guys dogging it, he's not someone who's going to dog it. I mean, he's going to go out there and he's going to try to have the best match on the card every night. That's part of his gimmick. I mean, you know, I can't fathom a promoter who wouldn't be ringing his phone off the hook the second that they legally can. I mean, it's completely absurd that they wouldn't be. As far as where he'll end up, I have no idea. I mean, you know, but the fact of the matter is, he'll end up wherever he wants to be. If he wants to be somewhere, that's where he'll end up. He'll be able to call his own shot. Any promoter would be nuts not to take him.
Yeah. Oh, and not even including all the indie promotions that we, you know, again, like, you know, until he signs that eventual deal, and if he ever does, I mean, every single indie in you name it will be trying to book him.
He can kill it on the indies for 3 or 4 months and then sign a contract with somebody for the highest bidder, or wherever he feels like, you know, if it's a creative thing for him, because I'm sure he's made plenty of money. If it's just an artistic thing for him, and he's a guy in his mid-30s who the clock is ticking and he wants to have great matches, if it's something like that, he'll sign in a place where he thinks he could have great matches. If it's about money, he'll sign with the highest bidder. But the bottom line is, he'll go wherever he wants to go. He'll call, because everyone's going to want him. I mean, there's no reason that you wouldn't want a guy like that. It's silly. Some of these people, you know, their fingers are just so far off the pulse of what talent is. I mean, if you can't see talent in Dolph Ziggler, you know, don't get into the wrestling business.
Or why people appeal to him and why fans enjoy him, or why.
If you can't see talent in that guy, don't ever, you know, invest money in wrestling or, you know, run a promotion, because you just don't have any eye for talent. You just don't get it. And you're just lost if you don't think that guy's talented.
But anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about him. But let's talk about this this WWE show in Japan, July 4th. We're going to, of course, we'll have a little bit of a preview of sorts, and we're going to review it. We haven't figured out exactly how we're going to preview it, but we'll have some stuff here because I think it's pretty fun show. And then this card came out. I said, oh man, we got to really cover it a lot more, because at first I thought it was just going to be, you know, a one match house show, some little stuff here and there, but it's a pretty damn good card. Like it's on, yeah, you know, it's right up there with you know, some of these specials we've seen as of late. I absolutely believe that. But yeah, July 4th, Sumo Hall. I'll run on the card here real quick. The opener, my God, Cesaro versus Diego. Like this might, to the casual fan, they might see this and go, whatever. But man, to like our group of fans and our niche of fans, like this is a super card.
I saw people on Twitter saying, "Oh, why is Cesaro wrestling Diego? Are you nuts? That's gonna be I can't. It should be a nice little match. What's wrong with that?" This whole card, let me tell you, this whole card has so many random weird matchups. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of one of those Christmas week Korakuen Hall New Japan shows, where they just kind of ignore the booking and just book wacky singles matches.
Right, guys, just have fun.
And that's what this reminds me of. And it's like, oh, why is Kofi Kingston wrestling Brock Lesnar? Why is Cesaro wrestling Diego? Well, do you really want them to go chalk here and book the same shit that we see on? Is that really what you want? Do we want Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins for the millionth time? Do we want Kane against? Is that what you guys want? Why aren't you happy that you're getting something a little different here?
Yeah, that's why I love this card. This card's filled with just matches we've either never seen or have just been like stuff you wouldn't get every other day. I mean, this is perfect. That's why I love it. I think it's going to be fantastic.
Has it been confirmed that we're getting all these matches?
I think so. I mean, I don't know for a fact, but I know in their advertising they've, you know, Brock Lesnar's all over their advertising. We know for a fact that Finn Balor and Kevin Owens going to be there. So now with Brock all over the advertising, we know that Brock and Kofi are there. I don't know for a fact. I would assume, yeah. I mean, I don't know why they would announce this whole card without. I'm under the impression that, yeah, they're just going to tape this thing and everything's going to go. So I don't know. I hope, because it's pretty good. Lucha Dragons versus Big E and Xavier Woods.
Okay. Fun match
Perfectly
there.
Fine. This one's fucking awesome here. And it involves Kane, and I just said it was fucking awesome. Think about that. John Cena and Dolph Ziggler versus Kane and King Barrett.
It's just so wacky.
Like, what world? What world is that?
So
I don't
random.
care.
I mean,
I want to be there.
The fact that it's so random is like, you know, is why you're intrigued by it. because
you don't because you don't know how it's going to play out. You don't know exactly what it's going to be like Kane and Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose and John. I mean, like that would be or Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns. Like you would know exactly how the match is going to play out. You know exactly what spots they're going to do. You know exactly. I don't know. I mean, what the hell's Dolph? Is Dolph like who's taking the fall there? I don't know. Is Kane gonna, who's matching up with who? Like, there's a lot of questions there. And why the hell are Kane and King Barrett on a team? Again, who cares? Like,
it just goes to show. I mean, it's people just want stuff that's different, and well, at least we do anyway. It seems like
yeah, we do. We're weird though. So
I don't know. I'm into it, man. It looks different. Looks fun. What else we got?
Neville versus Chris Jericho.
Yeah, I mean, that's Jericho.
How could you hate that? Yeah,
I would like to see those guys wrestle each other. It should be all right. I mean, Jericho on his last few runs hasn't really thrilled me, but again, this is different. And I'm sure it's a big thrill for a guy like Neville to wrestle someone like Jericho, who I'm sure he idolized to some extent because he was a kid when Jericho was a big deal. And I'm sure Neville's going to want to have a good match against a guy like that. And I'm sure Jericho's going to want to have a decent match against, a star like Neville, so an up and coming star like Neville. So I figure that both of those guys should be motivated.
Yeah, especially Neville back in Japan as well would probably be a good nice little thing for him. I don't know how many of those fans really maybe remember him, but hey, yeah, you never know. This is the big one here. This is if this doesn't get you really excited, Brock Lesnar versus Kofi Kingston. We knew about this one. I mean, come on.
How can you not be looking forward?
If this is not one of your most anticipated match for the next month or whatever,
possibilities are endless. The new day is on the card, right? So, this could be constant interference by New Day and Brock just throwing these guys around,
just tossing them out. Yeah,
this is so intriguing.
They have to have. You know what they have to do? Brock, and I know you hate like in the crowd brawling, but when you have Brock Lesnar, they got to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they run away when Yoshihashi runs out to the ring, or like Azuka. Like, you know what they do with Azuka. I mean, the freaking place is like nobody's within 90 feet of Azuka when he's rocking down. Can you imagine what would happen if Brock Lesnar like threw something into the crowd and just started walking out there?
I mean, it's not going to happen.
These people would get on the trains. They would get on the subway train and just drive away. Like they would get so far away from that arena. The arena, they would have trouble getting people back to the arena. They'd be so fucking frightened by it.
It should be a lot of fun.
The greatest thing.
It should be a lot of fun.
All right, Divas title match, Naomi, Paige, Nikki Bella. Not a ton of intrigue there. We've seen that match, but it is what it is. I don't think you have any strong thoughts on that one, so I'll move on. The WWE NXT title match. I'm assuming this will be the main event, but could also be the Brock Lesnar Kofi. But anyway, Finn Balor versus the champion Kevin Owens. And this one you have to take particular interest of because I'm sort of predicting it. I know a lot of other people have mentioned it as well. I think Finn Balor is your new NXT champion.
You absolutely see a title change here. It's Finn Balor back in Sumo Hall, by the way. And it's you got to get that title off of Kevin Owens somehow. And actually, I didn't read the spoiler. He didn't lose it at the tapings, right? I don't read NXT spoilers.
I don't believe so. No, I don't think so.
So it's like, this is a perfect spot of any for him to lose it, right? I mean, this would be a decent spot. So, again, you could absolutely see a title change here. This is why this match is so exciting because, it's not Kevin Owens against Alex Riley. You know what I mean? It's not Kevin Owens against Tyler Breeze,
Ty Dillinger, yeah.
It's you can legitimately have a title change here, and that's exciting. And it is interesting what they choose to close the show with. I don't know the answer to that. They could close the show with Cena. So
true.
I don't know. And again, it's not confirmed exactly what we're going to see either. I don't know the block of time.
We'll see this match and we'll see the Brock one, but I have no idea elsewhere.
Yeah.
I have no
what's the block of time on the network?
I don't know if they've said here. Let me fire it up on the actual.
The show will be 3 hours long, so if it's like a 90-minute block, you're only getting 3 or 4 matches.
Yeah, let's see. Beast from the East is the name of it, which it's just. Vince McMahon loves the East. Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly.
So it's hard to tell. We'll have to look into that, but hopefully we get the whole show. 4th of July, morning of 4th of July, correct?
Oh, sorry. Yep, morning of 4th of July. Yeah, sorry. The first result. I guess this is how we can tell we're in the bubble here. I look on Facebook, and it's from WWE Network's Facebook account. This is Brock Lesnar is the Beast in the East. Don't miss it live from Japan, July 4th, only on WWE Network, WWEnetwork.com or whatever. Corey Payne, the first result, and it's also the one with the most likes on it. He goes, "There is no way in hell I'm getting up at 5:30 a.m. to watch a WWE Network live event on the 4th of July." So,
I mean, if I might still be up. If I'm not, I might set an alarm. I'm into this show, or I might just watch it when I wake up. I don't know, but I don't know.
so just in case you need to know we're in the bubble, that guy and the most people that liked it agree that they're not going to get up at 5 a.m. But
I don't know. Fuck those people. I want to see Cesaro take on Diego.
This is going to be fucking up. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, and then of course, stick with America here. Again, a guy that I kind of missed a lot of his prime, but I know you had a lot of strong thoughts about. Buddy Landel passed away this past week. What many consider kind of one of the what ifs of wrestling, one of the an underrated guy, a guy with a ton of potential, but never quite got there. What are your Buddy Landel memories and thoughts and all that related to him?
Every week somebody's dead.
Yeah, it's been a bad little run. The Fantastics, Dusty. Because I was trying to think. Someone said, "Oh, these always come in threes," and I was like, "Yeah, no, it's just been Dusty and Buddy Landel." And I was like, "Oh yeah, Tommy Rogers." Like I forgot. Like
stupid comes in threes thing.
It is kind of lame because then people like attribute. They're like, "Oh yeah, like 8 weeks ago this guy died." You're like, I don't know if that really counts, but
the thing with Buddy Landel is he's one of those guys where a lot of his best stuff is a little harder to find. And okay, so I think what a lot of people probably remember is the brief couple of month run that he had in WWE, WWF at the time, in 1995, which in reality was only 3 days. But because of the nature, because he worked TV tapings, it got stretched out over about 2 months or whatever. His first match in, and this was after Smoky Mountain closed up, because he was a headliner in Smoky Mountain with Cornette and all that, and had a really good run in Smoky Mountain. It's not really easy to find Smoky Mountain footage. You can't just hop on YouTube and you know what I mean? Like there's some matches out there, but his most famous match in Smoky Mountain, for example, is the Shawn Michaels match, which set the attendance record in that building and everything else. And the footage of that match is horrible. I don't know if you.
Oh, it's so. I tried to watch it earlier. Yeah, it was a tough watch.
It's
it's like grainy with like. Yeah, there's like tracking problems during the footage. It's just awful. Yeah,
which
it's
that was a big show at the time, and I have that on VHS somewhere, and I don't remember the quality, but I have like I thought I had like the commercial copy of that Smoky Mountain sold or whatever, but maybe I have bad memories because I would think that version of the match would be floating around somewhere. But anyway, yeah. So it was after Smoky Mountain folded up, and Cornette came in, and he brought Buddy Landel with him, and he worked that In Your House match against Ahmed Johnson, which was just a 30-second squash, as the surrogate to Dean Douglas, who was injured, and that was it for Dean Douglas. He went back to ECW after that, and Landel lost that short squash match to Ahmed Johnson. And unfortunately, there's probably a lot of fans who that's their only memory of Buddy Landel. I don't know if you fall into that category. I don't know if you even remember 1995.
Yeah, I've seen that stuff, but even that is tough for me. I went back and I've seen that, but I wasn't watching live at that point, and I've seen a little bit of video, but again, like a lot of it is just that In Your House, because the other stuff, I mean, I wasn't watching Mania at the time. I wasn't
that's
watching.
What I mean. So a lot
right,
of people,
I wasn't watching Superstars or Mania or because all of his other matches, he has the one on the In Your House.
Yeah.
And then the rest are just like Superstars and stuff.
He was there for 3 days.
Yeah.
And he worked the Raw the next night, the Raw taping, and he beat Bob Holly, and that match is on the network. Because what I did this week is I went back and I watched every Buddy Landel match that is on the network. And unfortunately, he's not a guy where you're going to see the best of his work on something like the network. Because the WWF stuff was at the very tail end of him being relevant. And even the WCW stuff on the network is really him in an enhancement role, in a jobber to the stars role, and a lot of those Clash of Champions from the early 90s. You know what I mean? And his best stuff is from Smoky Mountain or Puerto Rico or early territory stuff.
Yeah, it'd be like 85, 84,
Yeah, and that's all, that's
83,
stuff
you know,
that's hard to
NWA or
find.
whatever. Yeah, yeah.
You know, that's all stuff that's hard to find. That isn't footage that's just readily available. It's definitely not stuff that you're going to catch on the network. So he had this 3-day run in WWE that actually felt
Yeah,
like
Stark.
a couple months.
What he won a title at one of the. Wasn't it 85?
He won the national title over Terry Taylor.
I think it was 85. I think that would be about the most prominent.
It was the Flair Dusty Rhodes Starrcade.
Was it 85? Let me see. It was 85. Yep.
Yeah. So and that
Together,
and honestly,
yes.
you know, in my rewatch of all his stuff on the network, that was my least favorite match. And I thought I was really going to like that match because I'm a huge Terry Taylor fan. But that match did nothing for me. It wasn't a very good match. But I'll get to that. I want to walk people through his WWF run. He lost the squash to Ahmed Johnson, but then he worked the next 2 nights of TV. You know, he beat Bob Holly on Raw. And then later in that taping, he got a world title match against Bret Hart, which is now kind of like an underground match. Because it didn't air until it aired on WWF Mania, which was like their D show at the time.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Way down.
But it didn't air until like a month and a half later. And then he worked the next night, that Tuesday, he worked like a Superstars taping, and he won a squash match over then jobber Matt Hardy. Wasn't Matt Hardy yet, you know what I mean? And that aired before the Bret Hart match. So they kind of built them up for the world title match on Mania by giving him a couple wins, because those matches aired before the Bret Hart match. And what's kind of ironic is the Bret Hart match was the last match to air of the 4 matches that he wrestled in those 3 days for the company. And really, that was the end of his relevance as a pro wrestler. It ended and peaked with that, you know, that Bret Hart world title match on Mania, which is a nothing match, by the way. I rewatched that again this week, and it's not a very good match. It's a very average match, but it was pushed as a world title match, and Jim Ross is putting him over on commentary, and they talk about him beating Bob Holly on Raw, and it's like, but then that was it for him. He got in the car accident or whatever, and they just never brought him back.
He did a little stuff in like 99.
Yes.
I know he came back, but that's like Shotgun Saturday Night. I think that might have been my first exposure to him. Or I know he did one Saturday night against like Goldberg.
He did some jobs as a...
But it was early Goldberg. It was Bill Gold, I think, at that point still, right?
He did some straight up jobs for both WWF and WCW, you know, years later. But those were just in a straight up jobber role. His last legitimate match as a pushed performer on the national stage was that Bret Hart match. That was it. And you know, that was it for him. I think he got in a car accident, hurt himself, and then they just, you know, they lost interest in him at that point, and they never brought him back. But unfortunately, it's that 3-day run, which felt like a couple of months based on when they aired all the matches, that I think some fans who are a little younger might remember, and it wasn't much of a run at all. I mean, there was just nothing there. The Holly match was a decent match, but you know, the other matches were nothing matches. But this was a guy who you got to dig a little deeper if you want to see his best stuff. And if you want to watch,
even YouTube doesn't really give you, because I went earlier today and I said, hey, people, you know, send me Buddy Landel matches and recommendations or whatever, because I'm going to watch it, you know, as much as I can before the podcast comes. And people sent me, you know, I got a few people that sent me that Shawn Michaels one, and I said, you know, I'll do it on my own. I went down to YouTube and I looked up, you know, Buddy Landel. And all that pops up are like terrible Saturday night, like nothing, absolute nothing matches from like 1991, you know, 90, you know, WCW Saturday Night. I saw him against, you know, Tracy Smothers and stuff like that. But it's like, it's stuff like that. Like, you're not going to get anything that is, you know, late prime, early prime. I mean, it's just really kind of the nothing stuff that you saw. It was pretty interesting in that respect, that it's really hard to find his top period.
And this is a guy who at one point in the mid 80s, for Jim Crockett Promotions, was legitimately being considered for the NWA World Title. Now, that's been under dispute. There's some wrestlers who deny that. There's some people who were around at the time who deny it. There are others who say it's true. He swears it's true. And according to him, I don't know if you listened to the Art of Wrestling that he did a couple months ago.
I never did. No, that was one that I skipped,
You should
unfortunately. But
definitely
now
listen to
I
that.
go back. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to it now and do it, because at the time I was like, I don't really care what Buddy Landel has to say, but
His explanation to why it never happened was that he was banging Baby Doll, and there was a lot of jealousy within the company that he got the girl. You know what I mean? She, of course, was aligned with Tully Blanchard at the time, but Buddy claims he was the one. I forget how he phrased it, but it was so not politically correct. He said he was banging her guts out, or it was just hilarious the way he phrased it. If you have a sense of humor, but
I don't, so I'm gonna be very
no, you
offended
will
by
be
it.
very
So.
uptight, and you will turn that off. And
I'm gonna make a blog
write a
post about
blog
how
about how this wrestler
Dead
from the
man,
80s
yeah.
referred to that sexual encounter with Baby Doll. But apparently he was dating or banging Baby Doll at the time, and there was a lot of jealousy there. And look, if you know anything about wrestling, that's a plausible story that people would be jealous about that. And look, we still hear that to this day in WWE, where if you're low on the card and you have the audacity to date somebody, that could work negatively against your career.
Or if you don't look like a guy who should have a hot blonde girlfriend, then maybe you should guys get broken up, and
Yes,
we'll see what can happen here. Not that that's happening right now, but
So could I see that playing out in 1984?
Certainly.
Absolutely. But I mean, that would be like peak Buddy Landel, that era. As far as the network goes, if people are listening, they want to check it out. I rewatched every match he has on the network. He has about 7 or 8 matches, and the WWE stuff is entirely skippable. The WCW stuff is from the early 90s. It's mostly Clash of Champions or undercard matches on pay-per-views. But the thing about it is, I wasn't expecting a ton from those matches, and I didn't remember them being all that great. But in hindsight and, looking for different things in my wrestling now, he's tremendous in almost every one of those matches. And, his role is to put over new baby faces. I mean, that was his role in WCW. Whether it was Dustin Rhodes, whether it was Brian Pillman, whoever it was, his role was to put over the babyface. He has 2 matches against Pillman on the network that I would strongly recommend. Those are matches where you said you were looking for matches before.
Yeah.
Go watch the 2 Pillman matches on the network. Put Buddy Landel into your little search box, 2 L's, because they spell it with 2 L's on there. That's another thing I wanted to bring up. A lot of people were getting real uppity about people spelling it with the 2 L's, and it's 1 L. It was spelled with 2 L's in a lot of places he worked. So, back down a little on that. Okay, you can't kill people for spelling Buddy Landel with 2 L's. You just can't. I mean, right on the network, they spell it with 2 L's. Look, I agree it was 1 L for 90% of his career, but there were times where he was billed with 2 L's. Okay, let's not be, jerks about it. It's not a big deal that people were spelling it with 2 L's. But anyway.
This is Flying Brian era, right? This is pre-Pillman. This
Brian.
is straight up Flying Brian.
This is early 90s, right? 1990, 1991. He had a good match with Dustin Rhodes, with like a 21-year-old Dustin Rhodes. He had
he was young too. I always forget that about Landel.
That's the thing. Landel was only 53.
53 when he died.
So,
yeah, that was that. I got completely, because then I started doing the math in my head. I'm like, oh my god, like this is a guy who's like, because then I watched one of the matches and it's the one with Tracy Smothers, and they're talking about, oh, this young prospect, always a hotshot young prospect kid or whatever, and I'm like, are they talking about Tracy Smothers? And no, they're talking about Buddy Landel, and I'm like, oh Jesus, really? Like it's hard to make that connection, and then you realize, my god, like how young he was at the point that you're talking about, where a guy who potentially, and again, rumored to possibly be up for, I mean, he would have been, what, 24 at that point?
He was
25?
In 1984, 85, he was 24, 25 years old.
That's unbelievable. Think about that.
The match against
insane.
Dustin Rhodes, Dusty, and I forget who else is doing commentary. It's Dusty and I guess Jim Ross. I can't remember, but definitely Dusty. And they're talking about how Dustin, is a blue chipper, 21 years old, whatever it is. And I was thinking to myself, he's not that much younger than Landel here.
Right.
And Landel was in his 20s in that match. But the thing is, Buddy Landel, because he got such a young start and because he worked in a million places, and it's like he was a really young veteran. You know what I mean? It's like, and the other thing was, he's one of those guys who always looked like he was 35. Whether he was 20, 25, 30, 35, or 40, he always looked 35. He's like Arn Anderson, where Arn Anderson never looked like, he always looked the same age. Buddy Landel was one of those guys who always, no matter how old he was, he never aged, and he always looked like old. He was like he was born 35 years old. So it was kind of surprising that he was only 53. It's crazy. Um, but yeah, it's a guy where if you really want to see his best stuff, you really got to dig. Now, the Shawn Michaels match, I remembered that match being much better than it actually was. I rewatched that match, and of all of the Buddy Landel matches I rewatched this week, and I probably watched a dozen of them, that's the one I like the least. That didn't work for me in 2015, and it worked for me in 1996 or whatever it was, and it did not work for me when I watched it this week. Um, my favorite matches were the Pillman matches uh, that I saw. But yeah, you really got to dig for his best stuff. He's not a guy where his best stuff is on the surface, so to speak. The one thing I would recommend to people is the promo that's getting passed around everywhere. The My Worst Own Enemy promo is what I believe what it's titled on YouTube, where it's the go home promo for the Shawn Michaels match. And it kind of fits the theme of this podcast we're doing tonight, Rich, where we're talking about how people just being real produce the best promos. Did you watch this promo?
I did. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, and it's what we were talking about at the top of the show. You can rewind to the first.
Yeah.
Rewind to the first 20 minutes of the show. I mean, yeah, that's it right there.
This promo, he just looks into the camera, and he cuts the bullshit, and he talks about how he fucked up his life, and he fucked up all of his opportunities, and how this match is his opportunity, and how this WWF Intercontinental title is, his chance at redemption, and he's tired of fucking up, and he's just real. And that's why it's such a great and memorable promo, because he's just being real. And it really is a tremendous promo.
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, that's the thing too. It's not a made up story about this guy. That's him. He had many opportunities, and whether drugs or whatever got in the way of pretty much all of them.
Yeah, and the promo's real and honest, and he's a guy who, I'm gonna steal another Dusty Rhodes line from the Hard Times promo, but Buddy Landel never looked like the athlete of the day. You know what I mean? He wasn't a steroid guy, or at least he didn't have the steroid look. And, he always had a little bit of a belly, and, he definitely didn't fit into, what you would think of a wrestler should look like in 1987. But, he really was a deceptively good athlete. And if I'm not mistaken, he was a high caliber athlete in multiple sports, including wrestling. Coming up through, high school and college age and all that. And, he was a deceptively good athlete in the ring too. And he was an excellent worker. I mean, I hate to say underrated, because I think he's one of these guys where people have been saying he's underrated for so long that
exactly, you're not
anymore.
Underrated.
It's like,
yeah, right.
I think everyone recognizes that he was an excellent worker. And even watching these, 6 to 7 minute, I don't want to call them enhancement matches in WCW, because they weren't really, he wasn't a jobber at that point. He was like a jobber to the start. He's a guy who got respect in the commentary, but he was there to put over a new babyface. That was his role. And we talk about it all the time, the world needs ditch diggers. It's like, there's a place for that in wrestling, for a guy who's really good at putting people over. And if you go back and watch those matches, it'll really strike you how good he was in that role. And at that point in 1990, 1991, people were probably tired of trying to push him, to be completely honest, because he kept fucking up.
Right, or he'd leave, or he wouldn't show up. There's other stories too where he was, drunk off his ass and missed a TV taping, and Dusty, said, "Oh, screw it, you're done."
He tells that story on Art of Wrestling.
Where, that one, yeah, that he
just decides he's partying, and him and Black Bart just decide to take off one night. I think it was Black Bart, and the next day, Black Bart's like, "All right, we got to get back because we're doing TV," and Landel was just like, "Oh, fuck it, I'm not gonna go." And Black Bart, what the hell are you talking about? So then, Dusty gets him on the phone, and he says, we got TV. And he says he told Dusty, yeah, go fuck yourself. I'm not coming to TV. And Cabana's like, well, why? Why did you do that? And Landel's just like, I don't know. I just didn't feel like going to TV that day. I fucked up. It's like the guy was just a fuck up. But later in life, he recognized it. That he was probably young and immature, and he was just a fuck up. And by that point in time, in 1991, they probably scared to push him. And he didn't really get another push until, he was a pushed guy in Puerto Rico, and he was there when Brody died and all that, and he didn't really get another really strong push until the mid '90s when Cornette pushed him in Smoky Mountain. He was a big deal in Smoky Mountain. That was really the last of his, major push. And then, he finished up with the little 3-day WWE run that we talked about. But
Yeah.
a fascinating guy. I mean, I would strongly recommend the Art of Wrestling interview. I'd strongly recommend the promo, and I would to the Shawn Michaels match at the Super Bowl Wrestling. And I would recommend the Shawn, even though I didn't love the Shawn Michaels match on the rewatch. It's historical. I would watch it.
Yeah,
for
it's
those
significant.
purposes,
Yeah.
and it's something a little different. If you never saw Shawn Michaels in that era wrestling in Smoky Mountain, it's a little different at least. And I would recommend a lot of those early '90s WCW matches too. And if you can get a hold of it, I would if you want to see him at his best, you got to dig into the early to mid '80s stuff, territory stuff. You gotta find the Smoky Mountain stuff when he was getting a push. And if you could find some of the Puerto Rican stuff, I'm sure that's WWC stuff. I'm sure that's pretty good. Because that's when he was that's when he was closer to his peak. But don't sleep on those enhancement matches in early '90s. He's very, he's excellent in that role, particularly the Pillman matches. Those, if you don't have time to watch them all, definitely watch the Pillman matches.
All right, I've got some stuff in Japan. I don't know if are we doing a full-fledged bounce around Japan? I don't know if you have enough topics for that, but I know you have two a match you want to talk about. I want to talk about a New Japan one. Do you think it's a full-fledged or?
Well, don't you sound just super enthusiastic about the gimmick?
I don't know if well, last time I got all excited about it, and then you're like, oh, I got nothing. I don't have anything.
Here's what it comes down to, Rich. Are you going to be motivated to stick the song in there or not? Because that's really what it comes down to. I'm not going to do the fancy intro if you're not going to edit the song.
I'll put the song in. Yeah, I'm going to put the song in.
Now, which song are you going to put in? You're going to surprise us? Or not?
Well, last week we had the Misawa one as a potential opportunity, but then we didn't bounce around Japan, so I couldn't do that. Yeah, I don't know who we're going to put for this one. I don't know if there's any particular song. I might just go with
Well,
I might do Hakushi. Let's do Hakushi. I'll do Hakushi.
You just gave it away. All right, well,
it's all right.
Well, Rich, in that case, I think it is time to bounce around Japan.
All right, so I'll take the first topic here. Road to Dominion, coming up June 28th, morning of June 28th. It'll be on New Japan World. I want to break this card down for you real quick here. Some good singles matches. Ones that, again, like, we're idiots and we'd probably be into these things. Jay White versus Taguchi. Sho Tanaka versus Tiger Mask. David Finlay getting a singles match against Jushin Thunder Liger. I wonder who's going to get the win there. Dorada versus Komatsu. That I cannot wait for. That's going to be great. Captain New Japan and Yuji Nagata versus Tenkoji. Belek Fale, Kenny Omega, Tama Tonga versus Kushida, Nakanishi, and Naito. Doc Ellis, Carl Anderson, Takahashi versus Beretta, Okada, and Rocky Romero. And then a gigantic, as you would probably assume, main event here. Nakamura, Ishii, Yano, Yoshihashi, and Sakuraba versus Makabe, Hanma, Goto, Tanahashi, and Shibata. Not a ton there. And those main matches are going to be kind of whatever they're the same, Japan, New Japan main event, multi-man tags or whatever. But I'm into all that lower. I mean, Jay White Taguchi, that one's probably a little bit low on the list, but everything else, Tanaka, Tiger Mask, I'm in. Finlay Liger, I'm in. Dorada, Komatsu, absolutely 100%, 1,000 in. And then, Captain New Japan and Yuji Nagata versus Tenkoji, that's pretty cool as well. The rest will just kind of be negligible, but I'm going to be interested in the show, definitely, for the first half.
Nobody cares about the tags.
You've seen one of them. You've seen every single one.
There's an unusual amount of singles matches.
Yeah, that's bizarre. Do you have any
I'm in all
theory as to why that?
I think I really don't have an answer for that. I think now that you've got Jay White, Finlay, your Tanakas, your Komatsu, you got a lot of young lions now that are working these shows, and I guess look, I'm not going to complain about singles matches on New Japan Road 2 shows. I'm never going to do that. Now, this is the same weekend as the WWE show on the network, correct?
This is actually the 28th.
Oh, this is a little earlier.
This is a Road 2, yeah, because you'll have the actual Dominion show, which we'll talk about next week's show.
That weekend.
Yes, so to add a little bit more to your 4th of July weekend.
Yes.
But you're good. I'm going to make you do everything on the site because you hate 4th of July. So
yeah, I don't give a shit about 4th of July.
So everyone else is going to enjoy their life, and you're just going to watch and review everything. So that'll be perfect.
I don't celebrate that holiday. It's a stupid holiday. So yeah, I'll watch all the shows and review everything. I don't give a shit. Yeah, so yeah, they did a ton of singles match. Look, don't ever complain about lots of singles matches on New Japan. Take
Right.
them when you can get them on these shows. That's the kickoff to the tour, then, correct?
Yep. Well, there's a show a few days prior, but this is the first one that's going to air
First
on
one's
New
gonna
Japan
air.
World. So yeah,
Yeah, looking forward to it, and we'll obviously have a
Yeah,
full
looks fun.
review on the site. Someone will take care of it. So, yeah, I'm into it. I'm into actually all those matches. Anything with Jay White, I'm going to be into, even though it's Taguchi. So yeah, man, looks good, man. Never complain about single. I will never complain.
yep. Give me as many singles
I
matches as possible. I
just
will
keep
never.
throwing them at me. Rich, did you watch Harashima?
I knew you were going to wait.
Kudo?
Isn't it Harashima? Did we have this discussion before?
No.
I think we have.
That's Hiroshima and Hiroshima.
No, we've had. No, I think it's okay.
But you're saying
I've always called him
Harashima.
Harashima. I've always called him. Are you? You're probably
It's a
right. I don't
different
know.
word than the city.
No, I know. I'm not.
So what are your two pronunciations? Harashima,
You call Harashima. I always called him Harashima.
Harashima? Well, someone's gonna have to tell us. who's
Correct
here.
us. Yeah.
I'm not gonna claim I'm right. I have no these pronunciations. I'm never gonna claim I'm right. I could definitely be dead wrong. We were correct. Look, we asked for a correction on Keno, and we got it. It's Keno, the Noah wrestler, Kenou. Several people contacted us to let us know that the correct pronunciation is Keno. So, like Robinson Cano. Okay, so that's how you would say that.
Nice and easy. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we need clarification on Harashima. Is it Harashima or Harashima? We don't know.
Help us. We're dumb.
Okay. I've been watching the guy wrestle for years. I have no idea how to say his name. I should just call him Darkness Hero. Can we just stick with that?
There we go.
But yeah. So anyway, he wrestled Kudo main event DDT. These DDT main events are always tremendous, but
They're so good.
for this KOND title. I might be the high man on this match, although I think everybody enjoyed the match. To some
Everybody
extent.
loved it. I loved it. You were head over heels.
I think
with
it's
it.
the third
So
best
I'll let you do the heavy lifting on this one because I enjoyed the hell out of it. But
I think it's the third best match I've seen this year.
yeah, you rewrote the your match of the year books. So
The only two matches I think were better than this are the two matches from Wrestle Kingdom that I gave 5 stars, which were, of course, my match of the year right now is Tanahashi versus Okada, which is one of the greatest matches in the history of wrestling in terms of work and storytelling. You'd be hard pressed to top that match. And of course, the Nakamura Ibushi match, which is most other people's match of the year so far this year, and I would say is the clubhouse leader as we head into July to win match of the year in pro wrestling for 2015. I think this was the third best match of the year, only behind those two classic all-time matches. And in any other year, this might be my match of the year to this point. Just a great match, and I'll tell you, it's not going to blow you away with a million moves. It's not going to blow you away. It's nothing like the Ring of Honor 6-man match that we talked about earlier in the show. But in terms of pacing, storytelling, and just if you're looking for a great singular performance from Harashima, you got me shook now. You got me shook
Sorry.
now. Now I'm questioning myself. Then this is your go-to match. I can't imagine anyone not liking the match. I can understand if people don't like it at the level I like it. I've got it at 4 3/4. Harashima was so good in this match with his facial expressions
he was. Yeah.
and the way that he worked this match. Basically, the story was, here you got the guy who's the ace of the promotion. He survived a feud with Kota Ibushi. He's your champion. He's been, battling Kudo for years. One of the main themes to the opening video to the match is that these guys have wrestled 14 times and that, Harashima usually gets the better of him. And the opening video, did you watch it? It was tremendous.
I did. Yeah. It
It really got you right into the
DDT does a good job too, and they use like the worst American music ever, which is the best
works
part of
for
all
some
this.
reason. And then, the story of the match was Kudo was just better than him.
Mhm.
And, Harashima, who's usually, a babyface type character, he turned into a fucking prick. And, he kept doing cheap shots. Every time Kudo would gain an advantage, he'd do a little, subtle cheap shots, nothing over the top. And then
Yeah, my favorite one was when he would kick out. When he would kick out, he would like lift his knee and like hit him in the stomach and like elbow him in the stomach. I thought that's something that I saw when I first saw it, and I went, "Oh my god, that's nobody does that." Like instead of just kicking out, he made it into some sort of offensive maneuver where he'd either kind of elbow him in the ribs, knee him in the ribs, or whatever. I'm kicking out. You had me on the ground, but hey, I'm gonna get this in. I'm gonna get this one quick little jab. Yeah, right.
Because he was frustrated because he wasn't physically better than the guy. And my favorite spot was towards the end of the match. They got into a forearm battle. They were forearming, the classic Pearl spot where they're forearming each other in the face. And he's clearly on the losing end of this forearm battle. So what does he do? He takes a cheap shot and punches Kudo in the stomach. And it's like Kudo obviously didn't see that coming. And then he gets this shit-eating grin on his face. Like, fuck this guy. I know he had me, reeling with these forearms, but fuck it. I'm just going to punch him in the stomach. And he fought so dirty, but in a subtle way. And the smirks on his face and his mannerisms, and you just wanted him to lose. I mean, by the end of this match, you were like, fuck this guy. He doesn't deserve to win this match. And then the finish was just tremendous with a certain ferocity to it. To me, this match just had it all. And I would have went full 5 on this had there not been some, I nitpicked some things early in the match. There was like a spot with a high, where he gave him a boot to the corner where they showed a lot of lightning, nerdy stuff that nobody wants to hear. The point is, this was a great fucking match. And I'm not someone who throws around 5-star ratings.
No.
The 2 5-star ratings I gave at Wrestle Kingdom were the first 2 5-star ratings I've given since the 2 Tanahashi Okada matches I gave 5 stars to. And before that, I can't remember the last time I gave them. I've given 5 stars out less than a half a dozen times in my life. So I don't just flippantly throw that around. And I almost gave this match 5 stars. I liked it that much. And I don't think anybody else liked it that much.
No, you're on a whole nother level. I think a lot of people really, or just absolutely loved it and would probably go at that. I'd probably go 4.25. I've seen people go 4.5. I'm fine with that. Yeah, you are the first one that I've seen that's really said, hey, this was tough not to give it the full. And hey, sometimes it clicks with people, and I'm not saying it's bad by any means. I absolutely loved it, but yeah, it didn't quite get to that level with me. But yeah, everything you said was right on the money. It was, if you really pay attention to that match, and I think what I would recommend for people is go back and rewatch. If you've watched it and said, I don't really get what Joe's sort of saying, or I don't really get what these guys are saying, go back and rewatch it and kind of try to take notes and maybe focus on Harashima or whatever the hell we're going to call him now, and look at what he does to us. I think if you rewatch it and focus a little bit, you'll be able to appreciate it a little bit more versus just watching it in the moment, where sometimes you get kind of caught up in what's going on and don't have enough time to sort of
super close attention.
Right, you look away, you grab your phone for a sec. Yeah. This is one. Put your phone away. You just watch it. Just sit and watch it and see if you can kind of pick up on what we're talking about. Because once you get it and once it clicks, it'll click a lot, and you'll love it either as much as we. I don't know if you'll love it as much as Joe, but you'll love it as much as we both do. So
if you're like a psychology nerd, and you're a nerd for like storytelling in a match, you're going to be as high on this match as I am. Because they really nailed this. This Harashima is some wrestler. Let me tell you. He had the 2 Ibushi matches earlier this year. He's had a good career. But he's really peaking this year with these high-level matches. He is some kind of wrestler. He's really good. And to me, this is the pinnacle of this match is the pinnacle of this guy's. This is one of the best singular performances by a wrestler I've seen in a long time. I mean, this is right up there with Kota Ibushi at Wrestle Kingdom. Whatever you want to talk about. With recent performances, Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, whatever singular performance you want to talk about with a pro wrestler in a match, okay? Any of the Sami Zayn matches in NXT, whatever it is, this is right up there with any of them. As far as character work, getting a story over in a match, and from taking you through an emotional ride of, I kind of like this guy, he's had some good matches this year, to by the end of the match, you want to reach through the screen and strangle this little prick for the way that he's working this match against Kudo. Very satisfying ending too. Just a tremendous. I can't speak highly enough about this match. I can't imagine. It's going to be really hard, and I know G1's coming. It's going to be hard for something to pass this up. I think my top 3 are locked in. If those aren't my top 3 matches of the year, then we're in store for some really great stuff over the last 5 or 6 months of the year.
All right, Joe, if I asked you what one of the most anticipated matches in Japan, or anticipated singles matches in Japan, you would probably not pick this one, but it has been built up for months, and it has a pretty cool little story to it, and it's in Pro Wrestling Noah, and it's Sugiura versus Shelton Benjamin. It's been teased for months now. They've had kind of stare downs and tag matches. They've confronted each other, never gotten all the way there. It is going to happen on the July 18th Pro Wrestling Noah show. And the idea behind this is pretty interesting. And I didn't really pick up on this until I saw it a few different places, including The Observer this week, is that the idea behind it is that Sugiura is the best amateur wrestler. He's a former Japanese Army champion in Noah. And Benjamin, of course, most American fans will know about Shelton Benjamin's, star-studded past in amateur, wrestling. He was third in the NCAA tournament in 1998. He's Suzuki Gun's best credentialed wrestler. Yes. So we're having a wrestler versus wrestler, guys with real sports background, finally getting a big singles match that's been sort of teased and hinted at. And I never quite picked up on that. I knew it was kind of interesting, and I knew it was kind of fun that they were going to have a singles match, but I never really kind of got that idea because I didn't know about Sugiura. But that's a kind of fun little nugget there from Pro Wrestling Noah.
Yeah, Sugiura was at one time, people called him the Japanese Kurt Angle. So, when he used like the angle slam or whatever he called it, the Olympic slam or whatever his version was called. So, I mean, yeah. I got to tell you, Rich, you caught me off guard with that one. I hadn't really noticed this little undercard Noah feud between these two guys going on, but I'm glad you pointed that out. Now, when is this match happening?
It's going to be the 18th. So it's jumped the gun a little bit.
I'm sure. Is that the...
I don't know if it's a special.
No, but I mean, what's the big match on that card? Do we know?
I'm not sure, to be honest. Yeah, let me see if I can fire it up here real quick.
Really
I just
dug
know
deep for this little nugget. I gotta hand it to you. I didn't see this one coming.
Yeah, let's see what we got here. Pro Wrestling, no, it's not going well. So just you might want to go to yours, and I'll try to see what I can find for this July 18th show. But
so what's the Suzuki match on that show? I'm wondering.
All right, so I'm going to Pariso Spirit, digging deep. Nobody has a is that one of the summer navigations? I think it's one of the navigation ones.
So it's just a random tour show. It's not even one of the bigger shows.
Let's see here. All right. Oh, here we go. Okay. Oh no. Okay. Now, of course, we know this one. This is the Suzuki versus Takayama match.
Okay, that's what I.
This is Summer Voyage 2015. The Raising an Army 15th anniversary show.
Okay.
That's on the 18th. It's Saturday the 18th at Corkin. So it's Sugiura and Shelton Benjamin versus Suzuki, or Shelton and Benjamin Sugiura, and then the Suzuki versus Takayama.
If we get the motivated Shelton, that could be a good match.
I mean, we know when he gets into a spot and when they get him a thing that he cares about or wants to care about. I mean, that's usually when he arrives and rises to the occasion. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't.
Yeah, so if we get the motivated Shelton, that could be a good match. And I have a feeling we're going to need that to be a good match, depending what else is on that card, because the main event, I have no faith in Takayama.
No, that's going to be bad.
Now, I have all the faith in the world in Minoru Suzuki, but he's really going to have to... I haven't seen the Maybach match yet. Have you?
I have not seen that one yet, no. I'm kind of scared to do it.
I heard it wasn't that bad. So...
who said that? They're probably... trusted sources?
I hear things. I haven't seen it myself. When was that? On the 15th? So did that even...
That was the 15th, yeah.
Did that even pop up yet? Are these people talking out of their ass? Is that floating around somewhere?
I've seen it. No, it's somewhere.
It is floating around. Okay.
It's there,
I have to watch that before the next show then. But yeah, I have more... I really don't have confidence. I'll watch the Maybach match if he can carry Maybach to something decent, but Takayama has not looked good. I mean, he just doesn't look healthy. And he's just not moving around all that well. So... I don't have a ton of confidence in that. So, do we know anything else that's on this show?
That's it. Those are the only two matches announced right now.
So, nothing for KES yet. I guess with the Shane Haste knee injury.
Yes, and that was actually another little nugget I was going to talk about. But I guess
right into that. Shane Haste.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Blew out his knee. I think the ACL for sure, and I think either the MCL or one of the other CLs that we have going on in our knees, but the ACL for sure. Anyone who's a sports fan knows all about torn ACLs at this point. So he's going to be on the shelf for a while. Worst timing ever for Shane Haste to blow out his knee and I don't think this is any secret because it was in the Observer, but they were offered deals, or were going to be offered deals, or were waiting for medicals to be offered deals. The point
And
is,
visa papers
WWE
and that
wanted
sort of
them,
stuff.
is the bottom line. And I'm talking, of course, Shane Haste and Mikey Nichols, which, of course, we've been saying for weeks, look, if they were going to get a tryout, there was no chance they were walking out of there and not getting some sort of offer, because they're excellent wrestlers and they're exactly what the company's looking for. And it's really gut-wrenching that he got a knee injury at this point in time. I mean, it's just, you feel gutted for the guy. And it could cost them a deal. It may not. If they were really in love with them, it's not going to matter. They'll sign him anyway. But it could make them balk. I mean, they might not think they may think that he may not be the same when he comes back from a blown out knee. You know, so it's really awful timing. I mean, is there any other way
It's
to
just
feel
the
about
worst.
this than completely gutted?
Yeah, here's a guy who, you work your entire career for that sort of thing, and you get it, and you knock it out of the park, and then, you just immediately does it. Yeah, so it'll be very interesting to see what WWE does with it. Because it's going to take a while for all the visa paperwork and all that sort of stuff. But like you said, yeah, and they're well in the right to say that too. Is like, look, we're not going to give a big stack of money to a guy who just blew out his knee. Like it's tough, even if there's a good chance the guy's healthy and immediately. I get it. They run a business there. Money doesn't grow on trees.
Nichols too. You got to feel bad for him. They're a package deal. And it's
Mhm.
not his
And
fault, and it's no one's fault. I mean, injuries happen. So it's just awful timing.
Yeah, it couldn't be worse. I mean, there's literally no time that could have been worse for these guys. But yeah, hopefully it all works out in the end for them. But yeah, you kind of feel gutted for Haste and Nichols.
Yeah.
But
And Meltzer reported that they were interested in him, and we've heard privately from people that they were the most impressive people there. So it's just terrible news. What else we got?
all right, so I got one more thing here real quick. I have Dragon Gate has a big show coming up on the 2nd. We will probably not be talking about that because it'll be going on the morning of the next time we record, if we record on Thursday. It's the July 2nd at Korakuen Hall, the Generation Gate. Very interesting show. We have the current generation versus the new generation in their main event. It's Hulk and Shingo and Kira Tozawa versus T-Hawk, Eita, and Big R Shimizu. So a little bit of a new match there. We have Yamato, Naruki Doi, and Yoshino versus Ricochet. Again, Matt Sydal and Shima. So Matt Sydal doing a Dragon Gate run as well.
Well, here's the thing. Shima had said a month ago, X, Y, and Z were coming into Dragon Gate, and we know who X and Y are, or we know who Y and Z are. I don't know. Point is, Ricochet and Matt Sydal are two of those mystery men, but do we know the third yet? I don't believe we do.
Dave sort of mentioned, I've seen other people say that it might just be Sydal's brother.
Yeah,
but that would be terrible.
That makes sense, because the word about it was, it isn't a big name like the other two, but it was somebody who was also a foreigner, and somebody who who everybody in Dragon Gate was very fond of from his time there in the past.
Mm-hmm.
That would fit the description, because of course
I'm guessing that's who it is.
He spent time there in the dojo. Now look,
that's
good
fine.
for him. I'm excited for him because, Mike Sydal, he spent a little bit of time there, didn't make a ton of tape, but I have a little anecdote, and it's not really that big of a deal, but I went to a Ring of Honor show once, and I guess it would have had to have been San Antonio. And I just wanted to quickly say about Mike Sydal, and this really impressed me. He worked the opener, and when I say the opener, he worked like, how they do a pre-show match in Ring of Honor, where it's not like really the opener, but it's like they do a match while fans are still coming in.
Yeah. I saw him in that exact same.
Yeah. So he worked like literally the opener, like, the throwaway. Usually it's a tryout for local guys against one of their own guys. You know what I mean? It's like, it's the pre-show match. So he works the pre-show match on this Ring of Honor show. And then, me, I don't sit at these shows. I'm a weirdo, and I go stand in the back, like against the wall, because I like to observe the crowd when I watch a show. And, he came out after his match. He during the real opener of the show, Mike Sydal came out from the back, with like a hoodie on, being incognito about it, and kind of like set up camp about 20 feet from me, in a dark corner of the building against the wall. And he took out a little spiral notebook. Okay. And I didn't really realize he was doing it first. He watched the entire show from the crowd and took notes while
Oh, wow.
studying the matches. And I thought that was just so impressive for a guy who, is a young wrestler who he could have been in his car and been halfway home or to the next stop on the tour. You know what I mean? Or fucking around in the back doing whatever, like on his cell. He was out there taking notes. Like, I was watching. That's what he was doing. He was studying the matches and taking notes, which I found to be incredibly impressive. I don't think I've ever seen that. Or, I'm sure guys do that, but I've never noticed that. Have you ever noticed a wrestler doing that?
No, I've never noticed. I've seen guys that are, peek through the curtain or whatever will do it, but never a guy that just went out and, made himself obvious that he was out there and then brought notes with it too, or brought something to write. Guys will kind of just go there and hang out, or, they'll go and sit down and watch it. But yeah, never notes. That's a new thing for me. I unfortunately saw him in a pre-match where he took a really bad fall. I forgot who he was facing. Really, it looked like his neck was just done, and I was sitting front row and I was like, oh god, like he wasn't moving. The medics ran out there in like 2 seconds and I was like, oh god. He ended up being okay, which was good, but yeah, it was kind of frightening that moment, because sitting front row and just seeing a guy not move, and and the medics ran up to him and I could hear him say, I can't feel anything, and I was like, oh god. But just a stinger or something like that, but yeah, it was kind of, so unfortunately my moment is not nearly as good as yours, but yeah,
no,
it'll be interesting to see.
That was just it's so terribly impressive to me. I mean, and he didn't make himself obvious. Like I said, he was kind of incognito about it, but I knew it was him, and he's back there with his little notebook, watching the matches and writing things down. I mean, that's just, I don't know, that blew me away. But, and he's a guy who we heard nothing but good things about when he did spend a little bit of time in a Dragon Gate dojo. He just didn't get to, he didn't make tape a ton. So this is good. I hope it is him, and I hope he gets a real good opportunity to really show what he can do. And I hope he sticks around for a while with Dragon Gate. I'm glad. I'm good for him. Good for him, because I get the sense that he's a guy who cares, and if you follow his Twitter, you kind of get the sense that he's a guy who really loves wrestling and wants to be good at it. And hopefully this works out for him.
All right, Joe. Anything else?
I got nothing else from Japan, man. I think we bounced around.
We did. I think
competently.
That's adequate bouncing. Well, Joe, any other final thoughts before we get out of here? This is a very long show. We knew it was going to be, but anything else?
No, I've got nothing else. I am gonna go, creep around the internet and look at some Danielle Harris pictures now. So.
And correct some Oxford commas.
I may have to do that too. I haven't checked in on the Tinder since about 2 hours ago when we talked about it. Let's see if I have any new matches here. Let's see.
Let's see. Yeah, I'd like to know.
Let's do some live matches. No new matches. No, I can't. But maybe I'll follow up with Lauren.
Yeah, find out what Lauren's doing. If she's not, just watch Buddy Landel the rest of the night, and then you're good.
And we'll see what we can do. But keep an eye on the @JoeMLanza if you want screenshots and updates on my one-man crusade to correct bad grammar and on Tinder, because it is my one-man crusade, and I will not stop until the Oxford comma is properly added to every profile. I'm even swiping in cities I don't live in, because they have the new gimmick now where you can swipe.
Oh, that's dangerous. Why? Why would they do that?
You can swipe in places.
There's no practical use for that.
No, there's not. It's just total boredom swiping. But I haven't come across any wrestlers yet, which I always think is funny. I always get a real kick out of that when people post the wrestlers. I guess I got to wait for them to come to town, right? So next time WWE comes to College Station and works to Reed Arena over here, I'll have to go through and see if Summer Rae is perusing the Tinder. And,
sure she is.
And don't think for 1 second, if for some reason Summer Rae matches me, I will correct her if she's not using an Oxford comma where she should be, because I will. Don't think I'm not above that. Just because she's Summer Rae. I mean, that doesn't mean anything to me. She should still be using an Oxford comma when appropriate. You know what I'm saying?
I do. All right. Of course, if you want to check out voiceofwrestling.com for all of our great content, voiceofwrestling.com/Amazon if you want to support us and our Amazon affiliate. Also, voiceofwrestling.com/WWE shop as well if you want to buy any WWE shop gear. All that other good stuff, voiceofwrestling.com/4.